What is going on, everybody? And it is fantastic to see you guys this evening. And thank you so much for the follow. I'm really looking forward to tonight's not continuums, beautiful people. Also the rest. What is going on, everybody? So, for those of you new to the channel, first of all, everybody, welcome. I'm really excited to hang out with you guys tonight, and I hope everybody's holiday season treated them well, their Christmas and their New Year's. I know it can be tough for some people, actually, depending on what we're going. I know we're all going through a lot, as a society. So I know that we try and keep it positive, and we're trying to keep the spirit, keep the spirit positive, but that's not the way that it is all the time. And I just wanted to say that, I hope that you did have a good holiday season. And, if you had a tough one, feel free to reach out. I'm right there with you. I had some tough things like going on as well, but ultimately life is good. We're here. And I think, we're in one of the most, beautiful communities here on Twitch together as Microsoft Flight Sim enthusiasts. Some of us are even pilots. Myself, I'm a certified flight instructor down here in Los Angeles. And I teach people how to fly airplanes actually down here. And I recently, in late last year, decided to bring my I have a passion for teaching ground instruction. I love the flight portion obviously as well, but what is going on, Dave? My brother's in the house, dude. What's going on, man? I know that I have 2 or 3, maybe 4 students that are actually going to join us tonight as well. So yeah, a slant alpha, absolutely. I just, it's such a privilege to be able to bring my education to a community like the Microsoft Flight Sim community, something where people want to learn, they want to support each other, and they want to help each other grow. And it's I stream other video games, and I kind of watch other I'm a viewer in a couple other communities, things like, I don't know, Oblivion, Skyrim, Witcher, but that would be a video game community, or even just chatting. There's some interesting things going on there, but just some weird shit out there as well that's destructive, or people not definitely not being supportive of each other in the way that I've seen flight sim, truck sim as well. Is that the way it is? So yeah, that it's just so awesome to bring aviation education to a community like Microsoft Flight Sim. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure there's way more great communities out there. Thank you so much for the sub, Iowa. You're awesome. And yeah, flying with Arnold. I am a SoCal CFI. I'm a double I, actually. One of my favorite things to teach is the IFR, the instrument rating stuff. But as an amputee, so you could read more about it in my About Me page, but I am an amputee pilot. I'm one of the few amputee pilots out there, and to my knowledge, the only CFI in the United States with one arm. And one of the special things about that is the empathy that I have for students that have a tough time going through their flight instruction. And so what I've done is, knowing what it's like, how hard it can be, knowing what it's like, to have a hard time and to get in my own way, and to not be, a great student, or to at least require a lot of, work to get to certain places. I try and pay it forward to put together materials that I share with my students and that I share with you guys here on Twitch, and then we in the form of ground instruction, and then we'll go in the airplane and we'll go do the thing that we're talking about. So tonight we are focusing on. Oh, and so I wanted to say, Tuesdays I cater to the instrument pilot, although all are welcome all the time. I try and do Tuesdays for IFR and the instrument rating stuff, flying IFR in different aircraft, looking at things like regulations and departure procedures and approach procedures. setting personal minimums and things like that. But Wednesdays and Thursdays, I tend to focus on the private pilot and practical approach to the ground material, like ground knowledge material, things like airspace, instruments, aerodynamics, and then the sim portion where we'll go and do it. Tonight we are focusing. So tonight is a private pilot Wednesday, and in the interest of probably most people in here, I would say, and certainly my students, I have a few students that are in here right now. Shant, what's up, dude? In the interest of most people in here, including some of my students that are in here, we'll talk about the traffic pattern tonight. And then in the sim, so we've got traffic pattern ground, and then in the sim, we'll fly the traffic pattern. But I'd like to also focus on checklist usage, and I'm thinking actually departing an airport and then going to another airport where we fly the pattern, and that way we kind of get we get the pattern, the traffic pattern stuff in there, but there's also like a practical approach to the way that we get somewhere and how we certain checklists that we use on every flight to get ourselves there. So I'm still putting together my January calendar actually in order to forecast what's going on, but I would encourage you to let's see here, pattern entries too, depending on the direction you come from. Great topic. Oh yeah, well slant alpha, like that's a great topic. Thank you so much for the follows, Scam, by the way. That is a great topic too. Like, how do you know where you're at in, like, how do you know what to do when you're actually in the pattern? What altitude do you know? At what altitude do you need to? A little basic for me, so I'll sit this one out. But have a great stream, Phil. Thank you so much, Ayla. Yeah, no problem. If you change your mind, we'll be here, and there are always going to be things that we can learn about the basics that we can get better at. And I do cover the traffic pattern as well as the landings from a fairly technical standpoint. So, if you reconsider and you want to come back and check in, the door's always open, Ayla. So yeah. And what I was gonna say is Slant Alpha, you talk about the pattern altitudes and how do you know what pattern altitude to fly. The other things that I think are really interesting when you're talking about the pattern is, let's see here, especially when it's on Pilot Edge. Oh yeah, no problem, Alicia. The other thing that I was thinking of focusing on is landing. Landing is one of those things that are incredibly difficult, essential, but also it's one of those things that even though it can be really difficult to learn, once you start getting it, man, you're landing, buddy. You're landing. And I don't know of a single person, no matter how experienced they are, who doesn't need to always be working on their landings. Like, no matter what experience level you are, you will always need to be working on landings. And if you're not flying and if you're not landing, if you're not practicing, I should say, the skills atrophy. The skills really wane. And so we are here tonight to talk about those techniques, the techniques for being in the pattern, the techniques for landing, techniques for taking off. We'll talk about that briefly. I should say we're not going to focus too much on taking off, although I will touch on that. Because to my knowledge, this PowerPoint, this presentation that I put together, they're all a part of the same lecture, and so like I will go through the takeoffs very briefly and then get to the pattern and landing. So now the last thing I'll say about this is that, oh my god, wait. Don't you guys hate it when you just lose your train of thought right in the middle of saying something? What's up with that, by the way? I think it's because my heater's on, and all I can think about is how I'm going to get up here in a second to turn my heater off. one thing that I really want to focus on, especially being Private Pilot Wednesdays, is the way that things look outside. So we're going to be in the airplane, and I'm going to have my IR tracker on, so we can look around the airplane, look out the wing, and I can show you what it's supposed to look like. Like, where are your eyes supposed to be going when you are in the actual airplane. Slant Alpha, you got to duck out for the night, but it's great to meet you. Sounds like I could learn a lot. So, hey, you know what? Cheers, man. Thank you so much for the good vibes. I'm definitely feeling that, and I would love to have you back. Frankly, it's great to be back. You know, I took some time over the holidays, mainly over New Year's, to just be present and, you know, be with family. You know, I've been really, really missing the community, and really, really great to be back. So, you know, I'm stoked to be here and glad to have you back at some point. Can't take it any fucking more, dude. I'm gonna turn this heater off. Oh my god. All right, dude. These little like space heaters, man. That for the win. You know what I mean? These little space heaters that are Shant. Thank you so much for the subscribe, buddy. You will not be let down. And you know what? Really, really glad that you're here. By the way, for those of you that are, well, I mean, really, whether you're my student or not, you know, definitely for my students that are in here though, make sure that you have a notebook out tonight, because this shit's like legit. It's gonna be PowerPoint, and the cool thing for you is you're gonna be able to go back through the archive on Twitch, or also I will export it to my YouTube account. And this is a video that you can watch over and over, because you, and same thing with a couple other students of mine that are in here, you're not that far away from this topic right now. You know, you just started, but you got great control. And you know, when we're talking about landing and the pattern, we're talking about lesson 4 and 5. You know, I mean, we're gonna start going to places like we said, like I was saying. You know, we're gonna start using some of these checklists to go to places and getting in the pattern. You know, we're gonna stay at Fullerton initially so we can get used to your home airport. But, you know, in other words, when I solo you, your initial solo will be at the airport, you know, and you're going to be basically driving around the block. You know what I mean? I'm going to give you the keys for the car, and you're going to be able to go around the block. And you know, the cool thing about the solo and the pattern work that you're going to be doing when you're solo is you will not be nervous. I mean, you probably will be, because it's like, what the fuck? What am I going to be doing right now? I'm not even licensed, you know? But in a way, you will not be nervous, because the way that I do things is we will be going to other airports. You're going to be handling high workload. You're going to be comfortable with communication. You'll have like a working knowledge of these things, but you're going to be comfortable with change. You know, you're going to be comfortable with, you know, configuring the airplane in a variety of situations, responding to atypical things. For example, when you're not cleared to land, when you're in the pattern but you're number 2 or maybe number 3 in the pattern, you will have seen the pattern at maybe 3, 4, or 5 different airports at that point, and you will have been putting these checklists to work, you know, to and from airports in the pattern, and you would have already been landing. So my point is this, that by the time you're solo and you're real deal out there by yourself, my goal is to over prepare you to the extent that when it's real deal and you're by yourself, you can cope with change. You know, you can cope with, you know, like, let's say another instructor the other day at the school brought this point up. You know, what if you're solo in the pattern and somebody else crashes on the runway? What happens is that runway is closed and you are not allowed to land, you know? For quite some time, while they clean the plane up, they get it off the runway, they sweep the runway, they have to survey the land for bits and pieces, and then it's open like later. So what you would need to do is actually divert to another airport and fucking land. and park. You know what I mean? And you need to be okay with that. So if it, this is a real deal what we're going to be doing today, when we're talking about the pattern. It is basic, but goddamn. First of all, it is basic, but I don't know of a more quick-paced, hectic, rapidly changing environment than in the pattern, you know? And so I am excited to talk about the pattern tonight. Okay, guys, let me tend to some of the comments here, and then we'll move forward. Oh, and by the way, before we get too far into it, definitely would appreciate a follow, appreciate the support. And like I said, I am a certified flight instructor. That's come at a great cost of time and money that I put invested in myself to make this material to bring to you. So, a sub, I would be eternally grateful for a sub. Help keep this channel going, and yeah, showing your support would be amazing. Okay. Let's see. King Cobra with the sub. Thank you so much, by the way. If I may ask, of course you may. How many hours have you logged as a real pilot? I am 900 hours total time. I'm 900 hours total time, and I've logged almost 600 hours of instruction given in airplanes to students. So what that means is I am a relatively green instructor, I'm a relatively green instructor, and I'm on my way to my goal is 12 or 1200 or 1500 hours, but just to keep going. So perhaps a good pilot can efficiently fly a bad airplane, but a bad pilot cannot even fly a good plane. That's true. That's very, very true. That's very wise words. Yeah, it's very true, Dave. Okay. Let's see here. Sick. Okay, you guys, and by the way, feel free to private message me as well, students. There are those of you that might be even in here that I've flown with and connected with that are interested in flight training. Hit me up. Okay, let me just get my my ducks in a row here. I got my coffee. Noise. You gotta have that that bad decision, regrettable, 3 mugs worth of coffee for the stream that I'm gonna regret later, or else it's just not the same. Okay. I want to say it was private pilot takeoffs and landings. Let's see here. I think you guys are really gonna like this presentation, this stuff that I prepared for you guys. All right, and what we'll do too is we'll do this in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. I tend to for the instrument stuff, and for like things that require the airplane to behave nearly exactly the way that it does in nature in real life. It's a no contest for me personally. You got to use X-plane. But, when it comes to the way that the importance of looking outside and the way that things look and visual references that are on the ground, can't beat Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. So I tend to on Wednesdays and Thursdays stick to Microsoft 2020 unless I'm in a DCS. Oops, F-18. Okay. So move that. Okay. And we will get Navigraph. Awesome. Sweet. So, what am I going to be referencing tonight? So what I'm going to be oh yeah, I love that I made this little space right here. Cool. Sweet. By the way, I don't know if you guys watch any anime. I'm sure there are some folks in here that do watch that stuff. first of all, there's a lot of anime that I've got in my my Hulu, like, my stuff. But dude, I've been getting back into Attack on Titan lately. Holy fuck balls, dude. How about that show, right? I mean, damn. One of the ones I think what I'm gonna do next. So Naruto's obviously good, but what do you guys recommend in terms of like maybe Parasite or Death Note? What's another one? One Punch Man. Bleach came up. I don't know. Do you guys recommend? What do you guys recommend after um, Attack on Titan? Honestly, dude, I thought I saw something maybe on Facebook recently about. No, what was it, man? No, you know what it was? I think I was just right. I was watching it, and the One Punch Man. Dave, I know you'd have something to say. Um, how the fuck about that Attack on Titan season 1 intro song, dude? I mean, it wasn't the same. Like the intro was not the same after, that season 1 intro, man. God damn. Anyway, point is good times. So what am I going to be referencing tonight? So I'm going to be using the Airplane Flying Handbook. That will be most of what you can even see it here on the cover. This is a base to final of the traffic pattern. It's all pretty much in the Airplane Flying Handbook. But also, you'll find topics about technique and like aerodynamics in particular. In not so much technique, but aerodynamics. In the pilot's handbook, things like airport lighting, markings, signs that we'll be also referencing in the pattern, or like on the airport surface, like airport operations type stuff in the PHAC. And the same things are also in the AIM. But also like regulations. I'm not going to really be referencing those. It's not a regulations night tonight. But, in the federal aviation regulations, you'll hear, or they'll talk about things like, who has the right of way, in the pattern. And whatever, when do you need your lights on and stuff like that. That is relevant. But, this is just generically, that I have other information that I use as well. Okay, so what's to come? We'll talk takeoffs and takeoff techniques, flying the pattern, and nothing gets the blood pumping more than some regs. Now, below minimums, I'd sense a hint of sarcasm in there, and I mean, you may not be sarcastic, because here's the thing about regulations, man. Number one is they can be boring, but for somebody who knows what they're talking about and can tell stories, there is a way to talk about regulations that is interesting, and that is scenario based. And I do try to, make it interesting. It's like regs and weather, fucking kill me, So, but anyway, yeah. So, flying the pattern, we're going to be talking about this type of landing here called the CAPVA, CAAPVAA, Constant Attitude and Power Variable Airspeed Approach. By the way, for those of you taking notes, not really crucial that you're taking notes on this stuff. I'm gonna lay everything out, but this is just to give you some insight. The Constant Attitude and Power Variable Airspeed Approach, that will be one of the first ways that I teach you how to land. And what that's going to be doing is, what you're going to be doing is, in the pattern, you're going to be reducing the power to a certain power setting. Like you might be going from like 24 or 20, mostly going to be like 2200 RPM probably, back down to some RPM setting, and you're just going to set it there. You're going to pitch down, and you're going to fly the back end of that traffic pattern at that power setting. But the cool thing about the Constant Attitude and Power Variable Airspeed Approach, the cool thing about CAPVA is it's a power setting that you maintain all the way down. So you're not really fidgeting with the power at all. And you can just fly certain targets on downwind, base, and final, and just analyze like what is going on like as the back end of the pattern is unfolding at that power setting. So, is that right, Dave? You remember this? Yeah, I remember flying. Dude, that was so much fun. I remember flying with you. We're definitely overdue. When I first started flying, I was fluctuating. David, you're gonna really like the visuals, because what I've done is I've actually done this in the sim and taken videos. I've made GIFs. I've shot photos, like screenshots of what's going on, and it's really really cool. Um, and guided down on the speed exactly. You're not really fidgeting. When you have more experience, you can like variable power, but for the beginning, learning, you want constant power, right? And exactly, Dave, you got it. You got it. When I was first started to fly and fluctuating the power so much, my CFI was like, "Hey, dude, when you're flying in the back of Southwest, did they go full throttle idle, full throttle idle? No, they use constant power setting." That's true, and as you get closer, they do actually change power a little bit. If you watch YouTube videos of like aircraft carrier landings in like jets, you do see them what's called jockeying the throttle to jockey. They'll be jockeying the power like all the way in just to make sure it's totally perfect. But for the most part, it is a constant power setting, and that's nice for you because your workload is reduced. You can just concentrate on your inputs, like your rudder inputs, and your aileron inputs, to like kind of feel what the wind is doing and make sure that you're like perfectly aligned with that runway. Because when you add power, it's just like one more thing, and the whole fucking thing unravels like a bad sweater. And then we'll talk about landings. So yeah, like I said, we're gonna spend some time on takeoffs. We'll talk about the pattern, and then when we're in the landing kind of topics, we'll talk kind of some stuff in here. All right. Here's the thing, and especially to my students, okay, that are watching, try not to obsess about your landings, all right? It's going to be important to you, obviously, that you're like, I just want to land. I can't tell you, like, how many times somebody has said to me, I want to be able to land in 10 hours, damn it. I'm like, don't have that be your goal, dude. Don't have that. First of all, you've gone on 2 flights. How can you make that goal? But your landings will come. And the thing is you can't obsess about them, because it just comes with experience and with practice. And here's the other thing is what you don't realize is when you land, there are a lot of things going on with that at the same time. And so time will only tell for you as an individual, what things are you running into? Like, what walls are you running into, when it comes to landing? Do you forget about the rudder? Do you not understand crosswind correction? Are you consistently coming in too low or too high? Are you turning base to final too early and you're never lined up properly? Do you have a hard time scanning the traffic in the pattern for the additional traffic in the pattern? When at busy airports, when you're number 2 or number 3 to land. Do you struggle to? I can name probably 20 more things. And depending on the individual, we will isolate those things and work on those things, and then put the pieces together. Okay, so don't obsess about the landings. It comes with time, and it's not even what's important. What is important is staying relaxed. Okay, and you got to use these proper visual references. Chances are, if you're not landing the way that you want to be landing, you're not using the proper visual references. And what I mean by that is you're focusing on the instruments inside, and you're not looking at the sight pictures, that where the horizon is, what the horizon is doing outside. If you are consistently overshooting final, let's say, over and over and over again, you're going to turn base to final, and you're always on that wrong side, and like you have to re-intercept the extended center line. Chances are your downwind leg is fucked up. Like, chances are you're not using your visual reference on the wingtip, looking at the runway to see if you're too close or too far away. Because if you were, you would know if you're too close. In this case, it's too close. If you're overshooting final all the time, that means you have a very, very short base leg, and you were too close to the runway actually on downwind. Because if you weren't too close, if you were the right distance away on downwind, then your base leg would be normal, and then you would have enough time to see the center line of the runway, and you would turn at the right time instead of overshooting it. So instead, it starts downwind when you can look at your wingtip, or I'm sorry, your wing your wing sight picture and look at the wing strut, or if you're in a low wing, you know, looking at where the runway runs, you know, intersects the wing itself, and determine if you are too close or too far away, and then make an adjustment, you know, on downwind, not on final. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So let's talk about takeoffs, okay? First of all, takeoff technique. So the idea here is we are trying to reach the safe altitude as fast as possible. And what the safe altitude is typically 1,000 feet above the ground. And the reason why we're trying to get there as safely and quickly as possible, and not VX quickly, but, you know, VY quickly, yes. The reason why is because that engine, if that engine quits on you upwind and on the takeoff, I mean, it's gotten real super quickly, you know? It's one thing to be at 5,000 or 7,000 feet or even 3,000 feet when you have an engine failure and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try and restart it, and oh man, bummer, it doesn't restart. Well, there's a wide open field right there, I'm going to put it there. Or, oh, there's a beach, I'm going to put it right there. Or that freeway has like a lot of openings in it, I'm going to put it on the freeway. I'm just going to set it on nice and easy on the beach, not a problem. But when you are, you know, 800 feet above the ground, or you know, 1,000 feet above the ground in a takeoff pitch attitude, you know, takeoff pitch attitude, and the engine sputters and starts coughing on you and stuff and quits, like, that's an entirely different situation. We got to act yesterday. Why would you land the plane if you have an engine failure? Just fly with the parachute and jump. Don't be such a quitter below minimums. No, I hear you, man. That you're taking the what's the airplane that has that? Is that the Columbia? Or the Cirrus? I know like different airplanes actually have parachutes, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, so there's that 1,000 feet above the ground. So this is a typical profile. This is a typical takeoff profile with step 1 being a liftoff and accelerate to best rate, VY. The climb at VY is our step 2. And then after the safe altitude of 1,000 feet, we accelerate to the cruise climb speed. And then the cruise climb out here, all right? To do this, we will need to, I was talking about the dude that jumped from his plane and posted it. Oh, of course. What is with that? What is with that, man? That was, yeah, I actually read, what did I read this? Something about the FAA, it was like FAA was investigating it or something, and yeah, right? Okay, cool. Because I'm like, am I fucking missing something? Like, that is not okay, right? Well, the thing is like he staged, but so, you know, even whether he staged it or not, it's called testosterone. Well, I mean, man, you got to reevaluate your life, dude, if that is the level of stimulus that you need. I mean, I would love to see him in a game of chess and just watch his fucking head explode. You know what I mean? If that's what you need to do to just, you know, get your fix, holy shit, man. Walk that guy through a florist shop, dude, or you know, yeah. Have him stand in line at Disneyland. Holy shit, that's got to be hilarious. Okay, man, so the thing that what we're trying to do is it starts on the ground, and we got to monitor this windsock and check the magnetic compass for accuracy while taxiing. So what I mean is, like, after we have done the startup check, you know, the passenger briefing, we do the startup check, we start up, we do pre-taxi, we get, you know, we have the weather, obviously, and we get the taxi clearance. We're on the taxiway, and we need to look around. We need to always be on the lookout for the windsock. And that will give us an insight on how this takeoff's going to go. Because if that sock is blowing stiff like this one here... oops, wait, hold on. I'm trying to get my cat toy out. You guys know how I feel about my cat toy. Um, to prevent that, stop giving those kinds of people the attention there. That's what I'm saying, Ori. I'm like, why are we? I mean, this is kind of what he wants, right? So yeah, like weird, you know. Um, if it's blowing stiff like this, you're gonna, you're gonna be feeling it. It actually does. It doesn't even take this much for you to feel the wind. But you also want to be noting, hey, like what direction is this wind coming from? Because if this sock looks like this and I've got wind directly coming from the side, I now know how in what direction I need to apply my crosswind correction, namely the ailerons into the wind, right? So here in this case, the wind is coming from the left to the right, and we will need to apply left aileron in this case, aileron into the wind. All right. So when cleared for, we know about holding short of the runway. We do our pre-takeoff check, and we're ready to go. Okay. So 172s are doing 40 knots over the ground. Ooh, damn. I hope that was all. That sounds like it might have been all headwind though. So then, damn, dude. So what was that, like a 20 knot headwind? That's crazy, dude. Yeah, when cleared onto the runway, check final approach for traffic. And so what we're going to be doing is clear for takeoff, right? We're going to read that back, lights, camera, action. And before we cross these hold short lines, boom, we look out on final just like that, right? One more time. We're clear for takeoff. Okay, and then look out, clear final. We vocalize that and we're good. Okay, lights, camera, action. Lights being the lights down here, right? We roll out onto the center line. Lights are down here. Camera is the transponder right there. And action is mixture full rich. We check the heading indicator and the compass match for the runway assigned. So, in the case of Fullerton, you want to call out 2424. Right? And we're not spending a lot of time doing this, but yeah, you do want to make sure. And sometimes they're not going to line up. 24 is going to show on your compass, but you need to set your heading indicator. And then what you're going to do is toes down, power to 2000 RPM, check systems, and then toes off full power. And as you go down the runway, you want to call out, first of all, as you go down the runway, you want rudder to maintain the center line. And then, if applicable, aileron into the wind. And you want to stay outside, look at systems. Back outside, like here we go. Right? Outside, systems. Outside, systems. See? And then you want to call that out, right? Systems are green on the roll. So here we are. We're going down the center line of the runway, and we're picking up speed. Airspeed's alive. And is a call out that we say when we see that the needle starts, the airspeed indication starts moving. We establish a takeoff pitch attitude, which means we apply gentle and continuous back pressure on the yoke. We let the airplane come off, and then we relax the back pressure. We don't dive back into the ground, obviously. But the thing is if you hold that back pressure in, that nose is just going to continue to pitch up, and you're going to stall the airplane. So leave the ground and then relax the back pressure to accelerate to that VY speed. See, like this is what's going on right here. Watch, I'll show you here. So we're on the ground. We pitch up. All right. We relax. And there's that VY sight picture with the horizon at this point of the instrument panel, right? We use this little section right here in the climb pitch attitude. All right, we've seen this before, and we just basically we know that at a constant power setting, this pitch attitude corresponds to a certain speed. So if we pitch up too much and the horizon starts hanging out down here, yeah, then we can expect that airspeed to be deteriorating. Or if we let the nose go down and the horizon is up here, in more of like a cruise climb sight picture, or even, God help you, if you're in a cruise pitch attitude sight picture, that speed's going to be increasing. So somewhere in there is a constant VY climb sight picture here, okay? Okay. If departing the area, establish the cruise climb. The cruise climb side picture. So after the takeoff, after the initial climb, the VY climb to a safe altitude, you want to lower the nose to the cruise climb pitch attitude sight picture. This is where the horizon's at for the cruise climb, right through the top of the instrument panel. That feeling of constant VY climb, which I think accompanies constant pitch. It's interesting how palpable that feeling of the constant VY. I'll tell you, actually, Dave, you really you nailed it right there, because it feels amazing. It feels amazing to be able to do that. And what feels amazing is, like, when the airplane is climbing, right? And you're holding that pressure in, that back pressure in, and on the controls, and you can almost feel like the weight of the airplane. There's nothing better feeling than trimming the airplane and fine tuning. There's a mechanism inside the airplane down here that you can't see. Actually, it's a little wheel, and you can fine tune the nose up or nose down of the airplane, so that instead of having to hold that back pressure in, it's weightless. It's completely weightless, and you can actually fly. Good technique is these three fingers right here. You're just flying with a little bit of wrist. You could actually fly with one finger if you wanted to. It's so light. Yeah, that is what is really that's what feels good, is when an airplane is well trimmed and is on a climb on its own, and you're just sort of flying with your two fingers or three fingers. That feels bomb. Okay. So for mating in the traffic pattern, establish a slow cruise pitch attitude at pattern altitude. A slow cruise attitude at pattern altitude, accelerate to slow cruise speed, and set cruise power. So basically what that means is, here is your slow cruise pitch attitude. This is this airplane right now is not climbing or descending. It's in level flight. You can tell that actually the VSI down here is 0, right? The rate of climb is 0 feet per minute. Pattern altitude in this airport is 1,100 feet. And you're 85 knots, 80 to 85 knots, right? So the slow cruise pitch attitude sight picture is this spacing between the horizon and the top of the instrument panel, that you'll notice that it's not as wide of a gap as cruise. It will, if you will, I believe I talk about it here, the different pitch attitudes, but the cruise pitch attitude sight picture at normal cruise power settings, at normal cruise speeds, not 80 knots, out here at maybe 100, 110, 115 knots, the nose is down significantly, and that gap right here is, could look like 2 inches. This is like about an inch. The gap could be 2 inches when you're in at the cruise power settings. So this is a comparatively thinner gap between the horizon and the instrument panel, but there is nonetheless a gap. What is the purpose of the departure procedure and how is it flown? We know that, but this right here, describe the rudder and elevator inputs that are required during the takeoff roll. As we're going down the center line and building up speed, we have the left turning tendencies working against us. The propeller is rotating and causing a torque, a counter rotation of the airplane in one direction. We've got the corkscrewing slipstream, the spiraling slipstream around the fuselage of the airplane that's hitting the tail on the side. That spiraling slipstream is causing a left turning tendency. When we pitch up, the propeller is actually producing thrust asymmetrically. That on one blade is producing one or more thrust than on the other blade. That causes a turn to the left. So we need right rudder in the turn. Exactly, that's P factor, Scam. We need right rudder throughout this process, especially going in the climb. Down the runway, we need, every time I try to keep it in level flight, it always ends up moving after a few moments or minutes. So Bo the Cat, that, are you in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020? This will happen even in X-plane, but I have noticed that because of the inferior model, the aerodynamics, the inferior modeling, um, the plane does behave negatively stable at times. That it does not normally do that in nature. X-plane can do that, but definitely not as pronounced. The other thing I would say in X-plane, then if it's an X-plane, then you're probably not trimming totally perfectly, which is almost impossible to do anyways in the sim because it's something artificial that we created. It's not nature. But I would work on trimming techniques to have the airplane, be able to be left alone for some time. But I think just due to the nature of the sim in general, you can't really leave the airplane for too long. So my name is Ryan, and when I first learned to fly, my instructor called me R cubed. Right, rudder Ryan. R cubed. I love it. Oh yeah, and I was gonna say, as far as aileron or elevator inputs, well, first of all, aileron inputs as well, right? Remember, right rudder down the runway to steer, and I'm not talking about holding in right rudder and like don't move your foot, right? There will be times when it's too much, and now you need to let off, and now come back a little bit. So I always talk about jabbing, jabbing like a boxer jabs. You put in what you need for the outcome that you're looking for. Don't just hold it in and think static pressure is going to be enough, right? It's got to be variable, whatever rudder you need to hold it down. Now climbing will be basically constant pressure. Aileron into the wind, and then like I said, elevator inputs. Once the airspeed starts building up and you're at liftoff speed, back pressure on the elevator to leave the ground, and then after the airplane starts to climb, relax that back pressure and let that thing accelerate to VY and maintain the pitch attitude for the VY sight picture. At the start of the takeoff roll, maintain the C pitch attitude for initial acceleration. Don't worry about what this means. My students know what this means, PITCH. Actually, for those of you that don't, let's take it back here for a second. I'll give you the table right here, and then that way, let's see. I think it's maneuvers for solo flight. Yeah. And that way you guys can look back at this video and actually take notes. Okay. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, when we're talking about airplane attitude, we're talking about pitching, up and down. We're utilizing this part of the window, okay, for climbs. And so this PITCH, these different pitch attitudes, help us understand like the various types of pitch attitudes, right? And that's that you heard you saw in the lecture. I'm going to go back to. It was referring to the C pitch attitude. So let's look at and see what types of attitudes are we talking about here. This attitude right here is the VX climb. This is the P pitch attitude. And I wouldn't worry too much about, PIT. What do you mean by PITCH? Why is it called that? Let me move myself up here. But the VY you can see is a very steep pitch attitude. You've got the horizon pretty low on the instrument panel. This is in full power. Looking out of the wingtip sight picture, you could also see that big angle like that, okay? The VY climb, on the other hand, it looks similar, but it's a little bit lower. It's a little bit lower. It intersects, the horizon intersects the instrument panel a little bit higher than, down here for VX. VY is what you want to, typically what you want to be climbing out at. VX is a steeper climb, right? That is best angle of climb, the greatest change in height per change in distance over the shortest distance. That is not sustainable. And it's also unsafe. If your engine quits on you, you will be on the wrong side of your best glide speed. But what it is used for is to clear a 50-foot obstacle, and upon clearing that 50-foot obstacle, you pitch down for VY. All right, and you bring that nose down a little bit, and you bring that horizon up a little bit more on the instrument panel, full power as well. Same thing out here. It's a little bit shallower angle out here on the wingtip. Cruise climb, we're lowering the nose even more. We're still climbing. We are lowering the nose to bring the horizon right through the top of the instrument panel. It's what I was talking about before. Cruise climb. All right, cruise climb sight picture. Right, VY was right there by comparison. Right, and VX was even lower. So VY was right there. You lower the nose and you bring that up a little bit. Is that much of a difference? Why not just hold VY? It actually is that big of a difference, right? VY was 75, and out here a little bit of a pitch difference. Now you're talking about 85 knots. Speed's increased to 85 knots. This is the way that it'll look out here, out the side. Cruise climb, though. So cruise climb is that where that gap is that I'm talking about. We notice that there's cap toy. Meow. VSI of 0. This is in level flight. We're doing 100 knots at 3,500. We're actually out over the LA harbor right now. This is Catalina Island. And this is the C pitch attitude. We're talking about cruise pitch attitude. All right. This is where we back that power off, and we can we back that power off to a cruise power setting. In this case, you could see 2200 RPM. That's a nice cruise power setting. Lower the nose. Now here's the thing: is as the airplane accelerates from 80 or 85 to 100, 110 or whatever, that nose is going to want to start pitching up again on you. So you need to continuously put nose down trim to maintain your pitch attitude. It's probably going to be a power reduction as well. You might not have reduced power enough. You might have reduced it from 25 to 24. And then as you pitch down and you gain speed, that RPM actually increases and creeps back up to 25. And not cool, right? So you need to really back that power off to a cruise power setting, 22 or 23 or something like that, depending on if you're in the pattern or not, right? And then trim the pressure off. Finally, the descent is, you can see here we're in a 600 foot, 700 foot per minute descent. Whatever your descent power setting is, we've taken the power down from 22 or 23 down to 17 in this case. But the thing I want you to notice is in the descent pitch attitude sight picture, compared to this, right? Look at that gap is not that big. It's maybe like 1.5 inch gap. And look at that gap is huge. Or it's not actually not big, but it's wider, right? It's wider. So you can see here we're kind of even pitched down on the wingtip sight picture there. I can't emphasize the importance of utilizing this wingtip sight picture enough. That can't be overstated. The importance of utilizing wingtip sight picture can't be overstated. Let me open this window. We need to keep looking around. Don't just be looking, out the front. That's why I included these wingtip sight pictures, because they'll teach you a lot about if you're banking or not. Okay. Aviate, navigate, communicate. This is these are your priorities as a pilot when it comes to what needs to get done and in what order, what priority. Aviate, navigate, communicate goes at the top of your notes. What this means is before worrying about communicating to ATC, you got to know where you are and where you're going. But guess what's more important than knowing where you're going and what's going to happen, right? Is what are you doing? What are you doing? And that is where Aviate comes in. Being present, knowing what is going on with this airplane, having the airplane under control first, then moving to looking outside. You should be looking outside anyways to know what the airplane's doing. But what my point is then ascertain, like, where am I? You know, what airspace is around me? Where's the traffic? You know, where am I going? What landmarks do I recognize? Then once the airplane's under control and you know where you are, then yeah, you're free to listen, you're free to communicate, and that is the order of things. We also have, like PITCH, we also have visual references when we bank. So we'll be referencing this in the pattern. That's why I'm telling you this. Straight and level flight is crucial, and it is technically a maneuver. But then once we start introducing bank angle, we notice that there's an angle here between the horizon and the instrument panel. Right, this is an example of a shallow bank, where typically at these normal cruise speeds, a shallow bank is 15 degrees. The medium bank angle, you can see, is even more steep. This angle right here is roughly 30 degrees, and that is what we refer to as the medium bank. And you want to, with more experience, you'll you'll be able to recognize how much bank is enough, how much isn't enough, and then finally the steep turn. So the steep bank, this is going to be this is a maneuver actually that you need to perform on your check ride, and this right here is a 45-degree angle. You'll notice also in each case that the horizon in level flight, the horizon intersects the instrument panel in a certain spot, right? It's a little bit different here for the shallow bank, but you can see here, intersects right here for the medium bank turn. Guess what? Intersects right there for the steep bank right there as well. So for you, depending on if you're shorter or taller or wherever you're at, that horizon's going to be in a little bit of a different spot. But the point is for you need to find out where that point is and where that horizon intersects the instrument panel. Don't be focusing on your altimeter. Don't be focusing on your VSI. Don't be focusing on your attitude indicator. The answer is not in here. The answer is out here. This is your answer. As you see this horizon start moving this way, you don't need your altimeter to know that you're descending. As the horizon moves deviates from this location, the attitude of the airplane is changing. And if you see more and more ocean, you're descending. Out here, if you start losing the horizon this way, you're climbing. And then you're definitely losing speed too. So try and, think about that. Okay, neutralizing the controls does not always mean, let's see here. Yeah, steep bank turns. So we want to be moving away from the overbanking tendency. I think this is okay. We can get back to the pattern, I think. Yeah, we can talk about basic maneuvers another time. Okay. I love that GIF, dude. All right. Yeah, that's okay. All right, cool. So that is all I wanted to say, really. This is a humongous lecture about the fundamentals. Let's see here. But that's okay. We're talking about the pattern today. So going back to what I was saying as far as Right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so there is that slow cruise. Um, uh, it's cruise. It definitely resembles cruise pitch attitude sight picture. This is in the pattern, by the way. Remember, we were saying once we're in the pattern, we have this idea of like the altitude that everybody is supposed to be at, and how do you know that? We can talk about that later, But in this case, it's 1,100 feet, or different airports are a little bit different. It is as simple as looking that up, but I'll show you where. But the point is you want to climb initially at the C, maintain the C pitch attitude for the initial acceleration. So like you'll see pitching it up initially, and then pitching down to initiate the acceleration. So what you want to do is like really you want to leave the ground, relax, but continue to climb. And then as it accelerates to VY, then climb out at VY. Once you're at VY, yeah, then establish a pitch attitude to maintain VY. One of the dead giveaways that a power setting is all wrong is the way that the engine sounds and the vibration that you feel in the airplane. With more experience, you are more acquainted with the vibrations of the airplane and the feeling of the energy building or dissipating, and you could do something about that. So this would be an example of when you would use this idea of like using vibration and sound. Would be like in the pattern, you pitch down, let's say for cruise, and you feel the engine building and building and building, right? Like the RPM is high vibration. You're like, oh, something doesn't feel right, because you didn't reduce the power to slow cruise power setting. You kept all that power in there, and you're fighting the airplane because with a battle that you created. By not reducing the power, you created this fight. So not fighting with the airplane usually starts with power. Yeah. What you definitely don't want to do is allow this airplane to pitch up on its own. This is just included an example of what happens when you leave the ground and you don't relax the back pressure. This is what happens. We pitch up, we start building some lift, and then you just keep that back pressure in. Oh my God, look at how low that horizon is, by the way. Look at what happens to the speed. 70 knots, 68, 65, 60, right? So when I got to unusual attitudes in instrument, I could always tell if we were nose high or nose low by the engine, because you can hear the engine get louder or get quieter. Absolutely. Or the air over the wings, same thing. Dude, below minimums exactly is on it. What you do want to do though, here's the build to there's pitching down for VY and then pitching for VY. Right? Back pressure. Okay, relax that forward. Look at that. Forward pressure, VY, pitch up for VY. That's what you want to do. Okay, we'll talk about ground effect actually later in landing. Some aircraft, this is an example of an airplane that stays in ground effect, but we'll talk about that later. When you enter or leave ground effect, pitch attitude increases when you climb out of ground effects. Yeah, so really what ground effect is that narrow band of it's a narrow band of air over it's really the area above the ground, like immediately above the ground, 10 to 15 feet above the ground, where the vortices that normally are allowed to circulate over the wingtips when they're generating lift, Those vortices are normally circulating around the wing, but when the airplane's close to the ground, those vortices are not allowed to circulate the way that they normally do. And so as a result, there's like kind of a cushioning that happens really close to the ground. And there's consequently the performance goes up. You don't need as much angle of attack to generate the same amount of lift that you normally do outside of ground effect. What happens is with these counter rotating vortices, there is a lot of the drag. That is what drag is associated with. That is the genesis of the induced drag. Yeah, so Ori, the vortices, the wingtip, the vortex, there's a vortex out here and there's a vortex out here. And so the vortex is spiraling around the wing and pulling that wing back. And that is what induced drag is. And the strength of those wingtip vortices is a function of the amount of lift that the wing is producing. So the more lift that the wing produces, the more drag it produces because the wingtip vortices are stronger. So, yeah, and below minimums is got it right. You know, like the airliners use those winglets to, to try and reduce the induced drag there. So the reason why we bring this up for takeoff, like this is like, that's fundamental knowledge for landing an airplane, but you actually need to know this for takeoff as well, because an aircraft that is overweight, like, or, is in air so warm, like that the airplane is not able to perform, normally, what may happen if you're not careful is the airplane will lift off the ground in ground effect where it's got all that added performance. But as soon as it leaves ground effect, if your angle of attack is too high or whatever, that induced drag comes back, the airplane might stall. So you just want to be careful not to have a super high angle of attack, leaving ground effect like this. Like this angle of attack is really high. So when the ground effect, when you leave ground effect and that induced drag comes in, it's not going to take a lot of time at all for this pilot right here to stall the airplane, because the angle of attack is really high. The induced drag is there now that we're out of ground effect, and all the things are there to stall, are in place to stall the airplane, and the pilot is probably not going to be on the rudder either. You're probably going to be having some major left turning tendencies as well. 160 horsepower. Oh, dude, have a good night, man. Hey, dude, thank you for stopping by and contributing, man. You're great. I'm glad that you remember the experience, and we'll talk soon, man. Let's get together soon. Maybe coffee or tea. Okay, so takeoff, power-wise, where we've talked about taking off from a pitch attitude-wise, like what the what the sight pictures are looking like. But Randy, thank you so much for the follow. What does it look like? What type of power are we talking about? Well, we're talking about full takeoff power. And that kind of goes without saying, but what kind of doesn't go without, what needs to be said is if you are taking off, right? And you notice that you're too fast, right? You might think, "Oh, wow, I have too much power in. I'm supposed to be at 75. I better reduce my power." No, dude, that's not the problem. The problem is your pitch attitude isn't high enough. Look at this right here. This guy's going to pitch down. Look at this already. It's already a cruise climb sight picture. And right here, it's cruise. Look at that cruise. This is like you go VY to cruise climb. You keep the nose coming down. Like, of course you're fast, dude. So if you're fast and you're taking off, we're trying to climb to the safe altitude as fast as possible, man, and as safely as possible. But we're trying to get there, right? The problem is not power. The problem is pitch attitude. right? So we hold that VY and we try and find that sight picture out here that gives us that VY. So what I'd encourage you to do if you're in the flight sim, or even if if you're a student of mine and you don't have flight sim, is on the flights that when I'm telling you to, when we're working on takeoffs together, experiment with trying to find to put this horizon right there, and then glance over at your airspeed indicator, boom, and go right here, right? You're just shifting back and forth like this, mostly out here though, you know. This is the real deal right here, man. This is the trim tab. So you can fine tune your pitch attitude with this and take that pressure off, like I was saying. All right. So we've talked about attitude and what the pitch attitude, what the sight pictures look like. Actually, we've looked at pitch attitude sight pictures with respect to the front and the wingtip sight picture, right? And we've looked at so we've looked at attitude, we've looked at power, and we've looked at kind of the different segments of the departure profile. But vision wise, like, it needs to be said, first of all, we need to always be looking outside. Always be looking outside. And this is even prior to takeoff. Look at what the windsock is doing, right? Always be looking around for situational awareness. Where do you look on the takeoff? Like, of course I'm looking out of the front, but like on this part, like, where am I looking? Right here, you're looking out at the far end of the runway, and you're trying to track straight. You're trying to track straight down the center line right there. Okay? So do whatever you got to do. This airplane's going to start rolling to the left. So don't let it. You got to jab that right rudder and stay track down there. Then once your elevator once you build up some airspeed and your elevator has some authority, back pressure to leave the ground and then relax. And then, like we said, that corner view, the corner of the windscreen right there is what you're looking for. All right. So taking off, flying the pattern. We've got the pattern now at Fullerton. This is actually right pattern. But standard traffic patterns are to the left. What I mean by that is, as in this example, this runway, all the turns are made to the left. See, all the turns are made to the left. Today we're going to go to Fullerton, and we'll fly the pattern in Fullerton. Actually, no. What I want to do is go to Torrance, utilize checklists to go to Torrance, and then fly right pattern at Torrance Airport, since Fullerton is a right traffic runway. Chicken in the house. Since Fullerton is a right pattern runway, and so is Torrance, boom, you still have that agreement. But the cool thing is we'll be able to go to Torrance utilizing some of the important checklists of how to get there. So anyway, but point is the standard is left turns, okay? Dude, what's going on, man? Dude, my New Year's was really great. And spent some time with the girlfriend and the kids. Was really, really fun. And it's good times, man. It's good times. I flew as well. I went flying. And had some yummy vodka and lemonade. Yeah, how about yourself, dude? I think you were talking about trying to spend time with the hubby virtually, right? I think. Okay, so what are we trying to achieve with the pattern? Oh, that's fantastic, man. I'm really glad to hear that, dude. What are we trying to do? We're trying to drive around the block, like I said. Oh, booked my flights. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. When are you headed out there? You'll be there in a week? Yay. Yay. You're trying to fly this rectangular pattern. Now, when you're diagramming, maybe for your notes or whatever, I just wanted to point out these are the legs of the pattern. This is the departure leg. This is actually, we can refer to this as upwind. This is the upwind leg. This is the crosswind leg, mainly because presumably you took off into the wind. So you're upwind, right? If you're headed into the wind. Your crosswind, meaning like the wind is coming from the side. Downwind is when you're being pushed by the wind. Ideally on downwind you got a tailwind going on. And then base is down here and final. So those are the legs of the pattern. The way that we enter the pattern, we're not going to really talk about them that much, but what you want to try and do is based on the direction of turns of the pattern, as the chart will tell you, or the chart supplement will tell you, or if you talk to a controller, they're going to tell you left traffic or right traffic. A lot of different ways of knowing what the direction of traffic is. You want to enter typically on that 45 downwind. This is the downwind leg, and this is like a 45-degree angle right there. Now, that doesn't always happen at a towered airport. That is how you do it at a non-towered airport, and it could be your life. Your life could depend on you doing that, or the life of another may depend on you doing that correctly, right? And what I mean by that is preventing an accident from happening because somebody else did the right thing and you didn't do the right thing, or vice versa. So, non-towered airport, enter on that 45 downwind. But at a towered airport where you've got somebody in the tower and regulating traffic and stuff, absolutely, you can enter on a downwind leg. You could enter on a base to final. You could have an extended 5-mile final. So that is what we're going to be doing today at Torrance. So it's dude, you might even have like right here, this is a left traffic, right? Well, the practice area might be from out here. The practice area might be here, so they might tell you to enter a right downwind for runway 36 and enter on this side. Right, come around like that, downwind, base, and final. They might be okay with that, So if that's a towered airport, okay, non-towered though, we enter 45 downwind. Yeah, exactly. A base and a straight end entry, especially like I know like around here, downwind is less yeah, I mean it depends on where you're coming from, like I know for Fullerton, when you're me and a student just did this, if you are coming eastbound from an airport over here, it's a perfect setup on a downwind actually. It's actually kind of setting you up perfectly for the 45 downwind, but 100%. Like if you're coming from another airport out here to Long Beach, Torrance to Long Beach, 26 left at Long Beach, that could be a downwind entry, But like a lot of the time, like to like let's say Hawthorne, you're entering along the freeway is like a really nice pilotage, like a nice visual reference. Dude, you're entering on a base all the time. Here we have an approach controller who sequences 90% of the traffic, but in LA, SoCal probably doesn't do much sequencing to deltas, I would imagine. Oh, no, I make no mistake about it, dude. They're sequencing like crazy. They're keeping everybody separated, shit ton of IFR traffic, and absolutely. No. People are getting sequenced like crazy. And our approach control, we have SoCal approach that handle. Where are you talking? Where are you from, by the way? You sound like you might be in a busy area. Are you like Atlanta? Why do I want to say Atlanta? I guess what I mean is, how often are the VFRs calling up SoCal? All the fucking time. All the time, dude. All the time. If you're they prefer it. The Tracon controllers. Oh, you're in a slow area of Alabama. Dude, my mom's moving to Huntsville in like a couple of months. Why do I feel like we've had this conversation? Were you telling me before to not have her do that? You don't like it there or something like that? I feel like we've had this conversation before somehow. Maybe in a previous life. And yes, actually a couple months ago. So, yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I was like, why does this sound familiar? But yeah, no, SoCal Approach, dude. People hit them up all the time, dude. Now, some instructors are kind of, you learn to fly in Phoenix, and Phoenix Approach doesn't work the VFRs into the deltas. Well, so okay, so the thing is, man, is the Tracon, the terminal radar approach controllers, like that's who the approach controllers are. Phoenix Approach, right? Or SoCal Approach, or Santa Barbara Approach, NorCal Approach. These Tracon controllers, they are not obligated to coordinate with Class Delta airports. So you need to check in with them and, oh, well, shit, man. I mean, yeah, then you already know what I'm talking about. So anyway, yeah. No, yeah, well, shit, in that case. Oh, yeah, dude, SoCal Tracon is, I attended a seminar where one of the I think it was like the director or something. I don't know, but one of the head guys over at SoCal Tracon and gave a seminar. Oh, that's so interesting. Or, well, you mean VFR traffic? You mean VFR GA traffic? Or just they hate GA in general? IFR or VFR? They hate VFR. So I actually asked the question, but somebody else we all had kind of the same question where it was like, if you're not in it, so it is all GA then. We were like, listen, what do you want from us? Like in the practice areas, because we have a lot of different practice areas out here, like a shit ton of them. And so it's like, what do you want from us? Because, it's almost like we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. You know what I mean? If we do hit you up, it's like, are we bothering you because it's SoCal? You know what I mean? Like you've got shit to do. You got people coming in at John Wayne, Long Beach, LAX. Like you're talking about all the different airports down in San Diego. You've got Palm Springs. You've got transitions, right? You have people like on SIDS that are transitioning to places like Phoenix or Vegas or Bakersfield or Fresno or something. It's like, and you're coordinating that with center. So like, what do you want? Or since you are the dudes who are doing that, like, do you want us talking to you so you can move us around, And he's like, hands down, we want you to talk to us. We want to be able to tell you to get out of the way, or vector you around arrivals and shit like that coming down. And I'm like, that's what I thought, because that's what I always did. But then I had like other instructors that are like, dude, you do what? Dude, you got to be on the practice area frequency. And I'm like, no, dude, like in Phoenix, you only call up approach to transition the Bravo from the north side to the south side and vice versa, but nothing else. You only call up approach to for the Bravo clearance. That's the only reason that you call them. You will not get a Bravo entry. You won't get a Bravo clearance, and you won't get flight following unless you're way away from the Bravo. Damn, really? Is it really that crazy over there? I can't imagine that it's crazier than LA. I mean, I figured that, all Bravos are brutal, but I mean, I just didn't assume. Sounds like you got some cranky old guys over there, frankly. They're just mean. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's what it sounds like. It sounds like they might be dicks, actually. So anyway, point is that is the 45 entry. Okay? All right, sweet. So after takeoff, what's going on? So we track the extended center line of the runway, and we make our first turn from the upwind to the crosswind, 300 feet below traffic pattern altitude. That's when we make that turn. Unless, noise abatement for a specific airport requires you to turn earlier. Generally speaking, that's when you make your turn. It says it in the AIM. Literally, I was talking to one and they were complete dicks to the VFRGAs and super nice to the airliners. Alter egos. Yeah, dude, you have like Bizarro controller and like regular cool controller. So here's this guy, 700 feet right here, so about 300 feet or so above or below the pattern. They make this turn. Notice this is like a shallow to medium bank turn. This is like probably a 20-degree turn, and we're utilizing the side pictures outside, right? We put that bank angle in there. We keep the horizon right on that instrument panel. We don't let the nose drop and start picking up speed. We need to be climbing, okay? We do need to look ahead of the turn before we cross, though. That's the other thing. Keep your head moving. Look out there to the left, you know, in this case, or to the right, whatever. All right. Correcting for wind is really important too, and this is definitely a skill that comes with time and with practice. But what you end up finding out is on that upwind leg, you will be pushed by the wind in such a way where you'll start noticing these buildings right here start translating away from you or toward you underneath the airplane. Like, in other words, if you're tracking straight, like truly going straight and not getting pushed by the wind, these buildings will be moving in a straight line under the airplane. But if you're getting pushed, like let's say that we have wind coming from right over here, right? And we're getting pushed this way. These buildings will start going away from you as well. And it'll be subtle, but you'll be like, oh shit, you know? So, all right. So yeah, we turn that crosswind leg right there. So we got that upwind with the crosswind correction, and then we turned. Floxtrot rating with a party of 5. Thank you so much, Flox. Hey, it's been a while too. It's good to see you, man. It's good to see you, and welcome people of Flox's stream. I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to the channel. We're just in the meat of the ground portion. Thank you for the follow, you guys. Thank you, and STW. Thank you. We're in the meat of the ground portion. We're talking about traffic patterns and how to fly the pattern, and then we're gonna go look at some examples. So here we are turning crosswind upwind to crosswind. We made that. We looked ahead of our turn. We had that shallow to medium bank turn. And this is what it looks like when we look behind our shoulder to the runway. I can't emphasize this enough. Throughout the pattern, I keep telling my students this, and some of my students are in here right now, and one in particular knows exactly who I'm talking to. You need to look at the runway. Look at the runway. Like, look outside, obviously. You need to know what the attitude is, what the attitude of the airplane is doing by looking at the wingtip side picture in the front. But you need your main ground reference to the pattern is the runway the whole time. And if you're late to certain things in the pattern, or if you're disoriented, or you keep missing, chances are you're not looking at the runway enough. So you're on the crosswind leg and you want to look back at the runway. Now, before moving on to the downwind, I wanted to point something out. Good form. You want this to be squared off. You want the crosswind leg to be. You don't want that to be rounded. And the reason why you don't want that to be rounded is because by the time you get you don't want the first time that you're able to look at the runway to be on the downwind leg. You don't want that at all. First of all, there might be traffic, entering on the downwind that you want to be aware of, or entering on the 45 downwind that you want to be aware of. Like, if they're entering on the downwind, obviously, if it's like a towered airport or whatever. But here's the thing: is you want that turn to be over with, wings level, so that way you can go wings level, shoot a glance out the side at the runway, and get a good view of what's going on. The other problem with the rounded crosswind is if the turn is actually too tight and you don't square that crosswind, you will actually, by the time you roll out on downwind, you're gonna be too close to the runway. So, and if you didn't fly, if you don't have the technique to fly around it, or a square crosswind, um, and you are therefore too close to the runway, chances are you don't have your wits about you enough to do something about that correction. You know, in other words, like, you probably, if you're making that mistake, you're probably not thinking about it in terms of where you actually are on the pattern to make the correction when you're too close. So maybe you will, but then why did you set yourself up to already needing to make a correction? Because now you're concentrating on making the correction and you're not thinking about reconfiguring for cruise, watching for other traffic, maybe talking to the controller when you're cleared to land. These are all additional things that you need to be doing. You don't want, the last thing you want to be doing is adding things to your plate, right? And by flying a rounded crosswind, you're actually adding shit to your plate. So, Mo, what's up, dude? Do you know anything about how long medical waivers take for first class medical? I don't know about medical waivers. You mean medical certificate? Because I do know, I have not had any medical issues, even though I'm an amputee. I don't have I've never had to have a waiver of any kind. Like, I don't have, yeah, so sorry, dude. Okay, level the wings, square your crosswind. And that's what squaring the crosswind looks like. Yeah, sorry, man, sorry, but you know what? You could probably talk to a consultant at your local FISDO for that. All right, so just like we looked ahead of the turn of ahead of our crosswind turn before crosswind, we look ahead of our downwind turn before downwind. So there we are. We look downwind first, and then we can go forward. All right, hold on one second. Do I need some water, actually? I'll be right back. Hold on, guys. All right. Very cool. So, we're getting ourselves on the downwind leg now. Now, right here, I just wanted to say, technique-wise, what I like to do is, when I'm like 100 feet away or whatever from the pattern, from the pattern altitude, I try and relax the energy before I get to TPA. So rather than, climb like a bat out of hell up to traffic pattern altitude and then shove the nose over to cruise, rip the power back, make all these huge adjustments. On my way up, as I'm right about to get to TPA, 100 feet or whatever away from traffic pattern altitude, I'll bring that power back, actually. I bring that power back to just a couple hundred RPM, and I lower the nose to cruise climb, and basically hold my speed, but I reduce the... Oh, thank you so much for the follow. What is that? X-Men Guy Storm? Thank you so much. Dude, how about the Cyclops, right? Cyclops X-Men, dude. That was always like my favorite X-Men. Wolverine's pretty dope, though. So, yeah, it's a strategy that I would recommend that you experiment with in the sim. And I'm not talking about reducing power like to like 1500 RPM. I'm just saying, make your life a little easier. You know that you're up there, you're going to be at a traffic pattern altitude in like half of a second. So it's like just chill it out. And then that way you're already kind of smooth transitioning to the slow cruise configuration. Right? So we just turned from crosswind onto the downwind. We're right here. And what you want to do, you have a visual reference here on the crosswind. All right, that is the visual reference to the runway, right? You're looking at the runway. You turn downwind and you look at the runway again. Visual reference is the runway right here. It's the departure end. Right here, you're going to be reducing the power to slow cruise. Some textbooks have you applying carb heat right then in the pattern. I actually don't. So I am taking this from a textbook, and I do not teach that. So, but, whatever. Shant, when do you know to make your turns in the pattern at Fullerton? Do you use landmarks? You do not use landmarks, no matter where you're at. Some people, what they will teach is landmarks, but the way that you teach landmarks is to supplement your awareness of where you are. So don't be confused. Like if you go with another instructor for like a flight or whatever, or if you go with a friend that they're like, oh, I always use like this street, or don't turn before this street, or I always turn at my base at the golf course or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that, but it needs to be said that those visual references on the ground, or maybe in the distance, it's some mountain or it's downtown LA or whatever, that cannot be your primary reference. The problem with that being your primary reference is what the fuck are you going to do when you land somewhere not at Fullerton, So it's a shitty way to teach landings, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with if you're using the runway as the primary visual reference. Like, for example, looking at on the crosswind right here, when you look back, when you turn crosswind, right? So here you are, you square your crosswind and you look to the runway, bam, that's when you turn, when it's over your shoulder like that. And it's going to be wind dependent, by the way, right? Or, you turn downwind and you look to the left right there. You know that you're a good distance. You're always looking at the runway, the visual reference. And I'm going to show you on the back end when to turn as well. But the primary reference is, the runway itself. Now, like I said, on downwind, it's a great question, by the way. On downwind, you've got carb heat, I guess. I would suggest not. You're trimmed out and you're trimmed for slow cruise. You got that slow cruise power setting, probably 2100 RPM, maybe 2000, 22, something in there, 2000 RPM, 21 probably. Depends on how hot and how heavy the airplane how hot it is outside and how heavy the airplane is. But it's probably going to be 21 maybe. You're trimmed out. It's super chill. You have your slow cruise power or pitch attitude sight picture going on, that little gap, and you just shoot a glance at your systems. How's your engine doing, right? Look at your engine temperature and pressure, your oil temperature and pressure. The GUMP's mental checklist. Basically, just make sure that your fuel, your mixture is in for best power. That you've got your gear down, 3 green, that your power is set, make sure your seatbelts are that your seatbelts are good to go. The main thing, you don't want to forget your landing gear. That is the main, you You don't want to, the GUMPS check, that is typically used for complex aircraft where like you've got a propeller to actually manage. Right now, like you're not managing your propeller, like you're managing power, but in complex aircraft, you actually manage the RPM and the power separately. So what does that even mean? Like we're not we'll do, dude, this month I'm totally going to do a constant speed propeller ground for sure. But yeah, for now just make sure that, you know, the airplane is happy like for landing, okay? Just make sure that the mixture is for best power. That the power is set, that, you know, the mixture is set, and there you go, okay? Why is calling the tower always last priority? Well, that totally agrees with aviate, navigate, communicate, right? And the thing is you're going to be calling the tower right in here, right on that downwind leg. You're going to be hearing from the tower, or you're not going to be hearing from them, and you're going to call them. And you're either going to be cleared to land or not, or you're number 3, or extended final, or extended downwind, whatever it is. You know, if you are extending your final, or god damn it, if you are extending your downwind because there's traffic on final or on base, we need to look for that traffic. Okay? And again, this is the way that it looks outside. We're keeping our head moving, and we're utilizing the wingtip sight pictures as well. There's your slow cruise pitch attitude sight picture. Looks like we're about 2,000 or 2,100 RPM. Like I said, 100. We're 85 knots, just the top of that white flap operating range. Sorry, guys. Cool. Yeah. So, if the tower says that you're number 3, for example, right? If you say full Hawthorne Tower Cessna 111 or 48883 requesting landing runway 25. And they say Cessna 48883 extend your downwind, I'll call your base. You're number 3 for runway 24. Traffic is on short final, and then traffic is wing up on a left base. So what are you gonna do if you're not number 1 and you have traffic like ahead of you in landing? We got to know how to look for the traffic. We look for the traffic by starting at the runway and we go backwards. This is what we mean by base and final, by the way. The legs of the pattern. This is what number 1 aircraft looks like on final. We have to start at the runway and then go backwards. Don't be trying to look out here randomly scanning like this. Start at the field and then go backwards. There's number 1 and then there's number 2, like about to turn base to final, okay? Number 1 to land, you start configuring. Again, this kind of goes back to your same question, Shant. Like, how do you know when to turn? You know, and let's see. How do you know when to turn? Well, the runway, once again, is your main visual reference. When your wing is what we say a beam, when your wing is a beam, your touchdown point, or when your touchdown point is off of your wingtip, we start configuring the airplane. Okay, starting the descent when opposite your intended touchdown point. That's what it looks like here in Hawthorne. Here you are at 1,100 feet. Wingtip sight picture tells it all. The touchdown point is right here in this case. So see, it's right under that wing. So what we're going to do is reduce power. See that? And open up that gap. Here's that cruise pitch attitude sight picture. And then we reduce power and open that gap. See that opening? And that's what we want right there. We want to start that descent. We open up that gap like that. We maintain 80 knots. We want to apply carb heat if it's on, or if we have carb heat. Step 1 is carb heat, reduce power, and again we're going to be focusing first on constant attitude and power landings, right? CAPFA landings, constant attitude and power, variable, constant attitude and power, variable airspeed approach, CAPFA. So yeah, carb heat is on, right? We pull that carb heat out, then we reduce power to whatever, you could, in the 152, or the 150, really likes, especially the 150, but the, 16, set, 1500 RPM is a good one. 1500 RPM, you're going to be kind of coming down a little quickly, but still, something 15, 16, 1700 RPM is good. And then what you want to do is, so carb heat on, power reduce, flaps 1. This is all if you're number 1 for the field. If you're clear to land, number 1, now we can start descending, okay? We're not waiting for anybody to land first. You need to pitch down. You need to open the gap right here, because the only way that you're going to maintain 80 knots after your carb heat is on, power reduce, and flaps 1 is by pitching down. That's the only way to do that. So pitch down to maintain 80 and chase 80 knots down to about 1,000 feet. I should say you lose about 100 feet. No more than 200 feet, I would say. 100 feet, 150 feet. Then you can start making your turn. Again, the visual reference is the runway. And depending on your descent, honestly, it depends on what this power setting is. If this power setting is 1800 RPM or 1900 RPM, then yeah, this will be a 45-degree angle. But if it's like 15 or 1600 RPM and you're coming down at a pretty good pace, it will be time to turn before this 45-degree angle here, right? In other words, it's not always 45 degrees. Like if you reduce power to 1500 RPM and you're dropping like a rock and you get to this downwind to base target altitude super quickly, if you wait for the 45 degree behind you like that, you're going to be way crazy low and far away from the runway. So don't be thinking in terms of 45 degrees all the time. It's better to think about target altitudes and airspeeds instead. And then it doesn't matter how quickly or slowly you're descending, you're good to go, right? But generally, if you reduce the power by kind of by not so much, maybe like by 8 to 18, 19 or 18, yeah. Then again, keeping an eye on the runway as a main visual reference, you got this 45-degree angle going on. Now you start making your downwind to base turn right here. I'm sorry I had to step away. No problem. What was the sight picture of the wing to determine the distance from the runway? Thank you so much, dude. Thank you so much for reminding me. I did not talk about that. So the sight picture out of the wingtip right here is a great example. And the distance that to know whether you're a good enough distance away from the runway or not, you want to look at the runway through the strut right here. You see the strut and the wing coming through the strut right here, or the runway coming through the strut. You want that to be about halfway up the strut. Okay? Now, and a little bit lower if it's on the far side, like if you're doing like a right pattern traffic. But it's roughly the same thing, So if you're too close, you're gonna see that runway down here. You know what I mean? And that needs to, you need to be looking around to be triggered by that, right? Yeah, or like a touch lower. If it's on your side, if it's a near side pattern, like if it's like, you know, a left traffic pattern and it's on your left side, then yeah, you can actually be a little, you know, it's a little bit it could be a little bit lower than a half, you know. But the thing that I wanted to say about this actually is, as you're getting pushed by the wind, you will notice, if you're not crabbing and if you're not doing anything to fly some sort of wind correction angle, then you're going to notice this runway creeping up or down the strut. And that is your visual cue that something needs to change. You don't need to be on base to be like, whoa, I'm overshooting final. When did I get so close to the runway, right? You don't need to. You're late. You're already super behind. The signs were there on downwind when you were getting pushed and the runway was translating up or down this strut, right? If I have wind coming from the right side and I'm getting pushed toward the runway, that runway is creeping down the strut right here. And I need to fly away from it a little bit. I need to diverge. If I'm being pushed from this side and I'm being pushed, the wind's coming this way, then that runway is creeping away from me. And if it's out here, dude, I'm way too far. You know? So use those visual cues. Great question. So how do you correct, right? Okay, so the way that we correct for wind is with aileron. We fly with aileron into the wind, and you know, basically if you've got wind pushing you toward the runway, you got to fly away from, you got to point the nose away from the runway to kind of even it out, you know. Yeah, okay. And whatever controls you need to do that, right? Aileron is always going to control your ground track, and the nose will tend to weather vane into the wind anyways. But yeah, you might need some rudder to stay, you know, to maintain that. Like, in other words, if yeah, you want to use aileron and rudder coordinated together to kind of fly that that crab. But it will come from the ground track, will predominantly be an aileron control. Aileron will control your ground track. All right. Whereas your rudder is, you know, in charge of how the airplane is aligned. So yeah, use aileron to into the wind. So a right wind, would you be corrected with aileron and slight right rudder? So pretty much what I would do if I had wind coming from the right, like in this case right here, like let's say I had wind coming from here, I would actually point I wouldn't think about it in terms of aileron and rudder. I would think about it in terms of heading. You know what I'm saying? I would just think about it in terms of heading. What heading do I need to fly a course that is parallel to the runway? You know what I mean? So try not to overthink about it, like to overthink it in terms of controls, because then whatever controls you need to do to fly that heading, then do that, you know? Because the reality is you're going to need aileron to like kind of start moving the airplane in that direction, but then you're going to be like kind of wings level for like a little bit, and that kind, you know what I mean? So just think about it in terms of heading. I'd say if it's a 5-degree heading wind correction, you know, or whatever. Okay, fantastic question, by the way. All right, so here we are in the abeam point. We carb heat on. In this case, this airplane, this is an SP, doesn't have a carb heat. Carb heat is on. Power reduced, in this case, to like 1700 RPM. Flaps 1. Pitch down to that descent pitch attitude sight picture to maintain 80 knots. And when it's time to turn base, here's the thing, technique-wise, for downwind to base, we need a medium bank turn. Medium bank turn from downwind to base. Get the turn over with. That is a 30-degree bank angle, okay? We need a descending turn, though. We don't want to be 30 degrees level after we just reduced power. Okay, we're going to be way too slow. So make sure you're coming down. But here's the thing is you need to control that gap. This descending, we talked about the descent pitch attitude sight picture has a little bit more of a gap, right? You don't want to be seeing all ground up in here. A lot, more ground than in cruise or climb, yeah, for sure. But don't let the nose just dive down however it wants. Control that pitch attitude. And here's the thing is downwind to base, you're in that turn, you want to be going from 80 knots to 75. And then on base, you want to be 75 to 70. You want to be square on base at 70 knots. So you're slowing down the whole time. So as you slow down, it doesn't hurt to trim nose up for that slower speed. And as you trim a little bit nose up as you slow down, to maintain that descent rate, and not have that descent rate get out of control, it will be super smooth, and that pitch attitude, will be a little more manageable, and the airplane will not feel as heavy. I do encourage trimming in the pattern. All right, so upon completion of the turn, you're square on base. You got to look at the again. Look at the runway. Main visual reference is the runway. Look and get a height, an energy, a height assessment going on. Here's the flaps. You can see the flaps are put in. This is a square base for the runway over at Hawthorne. The runway looks pretty good right now. This is the runway, the outline right there. Now, if you're not number one for the runway, for the field, and you are on an extended downwind while other traffic land and are on base and stuff, you do this configuring instead of configuring here when the wings are when you're abeam the touchdown zone, or the touchdown the touchdown point. What you want to do is start configuring the aircraft appropriately for landing or for the descent when the aircraft on final is off of your wingtip. So let's say that you're right here, right? And let's say there's an airplane on final right here. And then now at this point, this airplane is a beam. You're a beam. Now you start your descent. But think about it, man. You can't be all the way out here with the guy on a 1.5 mile final, and once that guy is a beam, is off of your wingtip, you can't be putting carb heat on and then powering back to 1500 RPM and starting a 700 foot per minute descent, and you're 3 miles out. It doesn't work like that. You got to use that noggin and say, okay, we are a ways out, and we need to descend more slowly. We cannot be reducing power to 16 or 17. We gotta, maybe cut that power back from 21 or whatever to 19, and really, really slowly start that descent. So remember, power is your main thing. It's your main thing when you're talking about the energy of the airplane. It usually starts with power, and in fact, I pretty much always starts with power. So if you are saying to yourself, I'm pretty far out right now, I don't want to lose a lot of energy, I want to lose some, okay, then take some out. Don't take all the energy away then, right? Okay, attitude-wise in the pattern. On the downwind, we know that this is the slow cruise pitch attitude sight picture, and this is the descent sight picture. This is actually normally this is the cruise pitch attitude, but with this low power setting, anytime you've got that power setting and that big of a gap, you are definitely descending. And then boom, now you're for sure descending once you open up that gap even more. This is a power on situation right here. This is a power on approach. So you can see here the power has been reduced from 21 to 17. But in a power off approach, right, this gap, the only way to maintain, we're even slow in this example, that gap's got to be open, really open. So you could either be power on or power off. You see the difference in the gap there? Yeah, so the shallow to medium bank, what you want to do is my point is this, like definitely watch your bank angle in the pattern. Ah, sorry guys, I'm getting over an illness right now. Talking like I might need to do Private Pilot Part 2 tomorrow. My voice is like killing me. ah. Yeah, we're looking at especially right here. This is a downwind to base. We're looking at a medium bank turn. This is actually just shy of a medium bank turn. This is like a 20-degree bank, but you know, something in there is what we're looking for. Full power, power in the traffic pattern. We're talking about full power in the climb, slow cruise on in level flight on the downwind, and then this is actually a little low for me personally. This power setting right here, you're coming down pretty quick, so I wouldn't. I would keep it 15 and probably no lower than 15, personally, and then definitely power off if you're going for a power off approach, you know. Trim is required. I do teach trim. I think there's value in initially not trimming. I mean, for me as a one-arm pilot, like that's the only way to do it, dude, you know, but I could see a counter argument, and I teach trim, you know, like personally, like when the student is ready and they're not overwhelmed by the workload, like I do teach trim all the time. And but I could hear a counter argument being like, no, like don't teach trim until later because then they get to feel the airplane. Yeah, dude, I mean, you definitely do get to feel the airplane, but I just think it's more important to you get to feel the airplane when you trim as well. It's not like you don't feel, that's how you trim, you know. So I don't buy that counter argument, but I mean, I appreciate where that is coming from and like wanting the student to be able to feel it and stuff. You just kind of sound like an old guy though, most likely you're an old guy. So, but it's okay. Okay, definitely looking outside, looking at a Capva landing. So yeah, first thing we're gonna do is yeah. So we're gonna get to this point, right? To do a Capva landing, what we're gonna do is get to this point, and then ideally what happens is we set that power and we do that descent, and we hit these targets all along at each point on this back end right here, and we go from this point down to base, from base down to final to the runway, and right into ground effect with one power setting. And then as we get into ground effect, it's like power idle. But I would recommend power to like 1500 RPM. And your targets are here, okay? You at each of these legs for your notes, you've got airspeed and altitude targets that I really should put on here, but they're not. So you want 80 knots on this downwind leg. In this descent, right? Carb heat on, power reduced to 15, flaps 1, pitch down, right? Open that gap. You want 80 knots right here. Right in this turn, you want it to be about 1,000 feet, or you want to have lost about 100 feet. Maybe a little bit more, maybe like 150 feet. In here, in this turn, you want your speed target is 75. If you started at 80, this is 75. This on square base, right? When you lift that wing up and your wings level on base for your height assessment, and you look from here over to the runway, where again, this is still 1500 RPM. Check in with your power, make sure you're still at 1500 and not that it's not creeping lower and lower, right? You want to be 70 knots and 700 feet right here. Okay, 700 feet. Um, and you want to be flaps 2 right here. Now, I personally teach partial flap landings. I teach no if you have flaps 1, 2, and 3, I teach flaps 1 on downwind and flaps 2 on base, and that's it. It's not that you're not allowed to use flaps 3. What I'm saying is that I think it's better to have flaps 2 in here with landing with flaps 2, and that way when you are on final, well, first of all, you're on base, you already know if you're too high or too low or right on. But if you're not good at that right now, you turn from base to final right here, and you do your height assessment. You're like, oh, I'm too high. You can try managing it with power by reducing power and descending. But if you're picking up too much speed, now you have an extra set of flaps that you can put in and descend, right? And you can leave that power out, put that last notch of flaps in there, and then then go for it, right? If you're right on slope, leave the flaps out. When it's windy, you don't even use full flaps anyways. So it would be better. Basically, what I try and do is have the student be more intimately connected with the power of the airplane, the power settings, rather than, because what ends up happening time and time again is if you teach flaps 3 every single time on final when it's not even necessary, the student doesn't realize it, but they've been making energy management mistakes on the downwind and base every single time. And instead of caring about that and caring about what the mistake was or what the power setting was, or when did they turn their base early, or too early or too late, or what the problem was, instead of analyzing it and trying to understand what their mistakes were, they're just cleaning it up every time with an extra notch of flaps. Who cares about being too high or whatever on base, because I have a third notch of flaps coming anyways. Instead, they think, no, I can do something about that. I don't have to wait until final and flaps 3. I can reduce power. I'm too high. I'm too high on base, right? Reduce power and get back on slope, or whatever you need to do, right? I like to teach partial flap landings because then you actually have an additional tool to get down, instead of just resulting to S turning on final or forward slipping on final, or if you need to go around. You actually have an extra notch of flaps to help you, which is actually really nice. And then, yeah, if a student needs to use extra flaps, I'm like, dude, nice, good decision. I agree, right? So it's just a better way to do it, in my opinion. But anyway, yeah. So 70 knots, 700 feet, and flaps 2, and that's it for the flaps. Right in this corner right here, we're looking to go from 70 to 65 in the corner, and then 60 on final. This corner right here, we want to be 65 knots and 500 to 600 feet above the ground right here, okay? Ideally. In a normal pattern where you're number 1. And then 60 knots here on final. Extend additional flaps on base or final legs. Drag increases, airspeed decreases. Coming around base to final. This is kind of what it should look like. You're good on speed. So just do what you need to do to hit those targets. Oh yeah, this is a really good point here about the wind, like how to actually account for wind when you're in a turn. So let's say that the wind is strong. You don't want to wait a long time to turn base to final if the wind is strong, because as you turn from base to final into a strong headwind, that ground speed will be reducing. Your ground speed will be slowing down. And so your energy, you're kind of losing the energy. You know what I mean? You really want to keep that airplane flying. You want to be coming down to the ground. So the airplane flying handbook recommends, and I agree, that you want to turn base to final early. Or well, I should say you want to fly a tighter in base. It's not necessarily turning base to final early, but you want to turn, I guess, downwind to base earlier than, I suppose. You know, in a strong wind, you want a little bit tighter. You want it to be a little bit tighter. So how much flaps in a wind shear? Nothing more than partial. Like, I mean, I even teach, depending on how, first of all, you shouldn't be a student flying in wind shear. All right. So, but in strong wind, you know, flaps 2 is fine. You know, you want to come in flaps 2 and then a little bit faster, like maybe 5 knots faster. Yeah, was that a test? Did I pass your test? How much flaps in wind shear? Trick question. You shouldn't be flying in wind shear. Oops. Did I pass your little test? No, I get what you're saying, dude. So yeah, you know, wind affects it. Yep, key position. This is a key position because, and like this goes back to what I was saying, runway as the visual reference, because we need to, this is another one where it's like your height assessment. You know, I'll be on base and I'll ask a student, what's your height assessment? Oh, I think we're too low. Okay, well, let's do something about that, right? To me, it looked actually fine. But if they think they're too low, what do they? I'm going to watch what they do. And if they just pull up, it's like, dude, power and attitude for performance, right? The student in here watching right now knows who I'm talking to. Power and attitude together. Power and attitude together. Power and attitude together. Power and attitude together. Motherfuckers be laughing. All right, so you know who I'm talking to, dude. But no, I'm giving you a hard time. But you're doing great. You're doing great. You're doing awesome. You're doing awesome. You actually murdered that last lesson. Was the shit. That was really, really cool. Yeah, man. So that height assessment on base is super crucial. Oh yeah, here's another actual, like, an interesting visual reference here. Like, how do you know if you're too low or too high on base? If you don't see, okay, so right here is the runway. So if you see a lot of distance between you and the runway right here, and not a lot of distance between the runway and the horizon, you are too low. Right? Too high, and that distance between you and the runway appears to reduce, and the distance between the horizon and the runway starts to increase, right? You see that? This is like squashed down, too low. You see all that distance right there is too low. Too high, you have like a ton of distance between the runway and the horizon, and not as much apparent distance between you and the runway, you see. So just little cues like that will be really helpful. I like being a little bit high on base so I don't have to add as much power on final. Yeah, well, you know, negative ATIS, I love that. High on base, as long as you're not too high, it's not a bad idea, because, you know, like, that's short field landing technique, you know, a little bit slower and a little bit steeper than normal. That's short field landing technique. And I think it's nice to have, but see, you're probably landing with full flaps though, huh? That sounds like a full flap landing. Like, that sounds like you do full flaps on final then. Curious. It's possible that you could be a little bit high on base and actually be landing partial flaps, and you just manage your energy well with power, but yeah, see? So yeah, it depends. You know, it depends on what your configuration is. And if you're a full flap configuration, and there you go, you know? So the problem though is that's going to be rough like when it's really windy. you know. You full flaps like is really rough when you're windy. So what does it look like when you're too low? Like what does the runway look like when you're on final? It looks squashed like this, you know. Too high and it starts looking like this. This is the what we're talking about are the three stages of a good landing. And there's the squashed runway right there. There's the long runway, right? This is way too high. This is way too high. This is short final, dude, and you're out there on base to final altitudes. Here's an example of too low and correcting for your glide path. So here's this guy is way too low. So what's going to happen is you can actually just turn base to final early and just start making your way over to the runway. Remember, why aren't we just adding power, leveling off, you know? Well, because we're not adding power. We're constant power. Variable airspeed approach. So if you've set your power and you're getting too slow, try and correct the track. Just be aware of that energy, and instead of adding power, just fly a short in base to final. That's what this guy's doing. See that? Let's look at it from here. So see, you're pretty low, so you just cut to the chase and fly the tight in base to final. And now it's starting to look really good. Right? You're 66, 65 knots. Over the fence, 60 knots. Nice. Okay, so there's your base leg orientation. Add flaps as required. There's that turn. That's like a normal base to final turn. Actually, your this guy is like way too fast. That's way too fast. All right. So finally, landings. You know what? We'll do landings another time. Let's you know what? Let's get in the pattern. I'm actually filling up for it. Let's do a few laps in the pattern. We won't we'll do private pilot part 2 tomorrow with the checklists and going from an airport to another airport. But I did want to kind of put it all together in the pattern tonight. So let's let me just set that up really quick. Shan, you know I'm giving you a hard time, right? You know that you're killing it. Yvonne Snow, I am not. I will be on PC. So, right. Oh yeah, we totally have to do landings another time. So would you recommend Microsoft Flight Sim or X-Plane for first time flight sim? Well, first of all, it depends on your rig, like what your computer can handle. I don't know. You know, they're both really, really great. I will tell you this: if you are looking at flight sim because you are really considering taking flight lessons someday, maybe even someday soon, X-Plane. If you're curious about how airplanes fly and how they behave in actual life, X-Plane. If you're looking for a beautiful and X-Plane is beautiful too, by the way. I mean, I'm not here to talk shit on either sim, but I will say X-Plane is not shabby either. But if you want a game that looks bomb, that is, gorgeous. X-Plane is not gorgeous. It is to me. It is to, pilots that fly. It's gorgeous because it behaves gorgeous. But in terms of, dude, Microsoft, can't be beat. Like, it looks fucking amazing, dude. So if you're looking for a game that looks gorgeous, Microsoft. For sure. They also got some sick airplanes in there, man. The CJ4, holy shit, dude. That is a fun airplane to fly. But again, you're not flying it though. Are you, right? You're in autopilot. Oops. All right. Let's get the head tracker on. Hey. Yeah. Cute. All right. Sweet. And we will be using Microsoft Flight Sim. Oh yeah, of course. Are you looking for? Oh yeah, what did Negative 80 say? So Microsoft Flight Sim, great for VFR, but the avionics and GPS stuff is spotty. Absolutely true too. Holy shit, get your shit together. If you're looking to practice IFR, X-Plane is the best and most realistic. I think IFR, but just in general, like dude, even pattern work. Like I have half a mind to practice my pattern work right now in X-Plane, but I mean. I can handle Microsoft Flight Sim enough to where it's like not that big of a deal, and I am familiar with how airplanes actually fly, so it's But the whole this right here that happens sometimes, it's like what the fuck, like that doesn't happen. But like the other night, for those of you that were here, like what was it last night, right? We were doing partial panel ops. We were doing IFR flying, panel only. Like we zoomed into the panel, did not see outside, and we were looking at dynamics and behaviors of the airplane with power settings and turns and doing all kinds of precise flying. Dude, that's all X-Plane, man. That's all X-Plane. But then you got shit like this, like, you can make X-Plane look better by making your own orth photo, but you'll need some big hard drives to store it. Oh, yeah. See, I don't even mess with any scenery either. So that's true too. Maybe Iowa, you can help me with that someday because I don't. There's a lot of sim stuff that I don't know how to do. You know, I know how to teach in it. I know how to fly actual airplanes. I know how to work systems. I know how to do the checklists. I know how to teach, right? But a lot of the sim stuff, like with scenery and changing out avionics and all kinds of weird stuff, like there's a lot for me to learn too. So that's the other really cool thing about sim, is like there's always something to learn, man. And there's always somebody that knows more than you, which is the shit. It's awesome. That's what I love, that shit, dude. Little fish, big pond is the way to fucking go. Am I right? Just while this loads up. Oh, the caravan is something that I definitely want to try. The homie was dying, dude. He felt the anger. Oh, man. Dude, working with you is fun, dude. Working with you is fun. Okay. So, one thing I want to fuck around with a little bit, not tonight, are these 152 like lessons here. Pretty awesome, I imagine, I love it, dude. Yeah, I'll be like, how do you be like, okay, descend and maintain 3,000. Like, how are you gonna do it? And you go, power and attitude for performance, bruh. Right there. I'm like, God damn, what the fuck did you do, dude? Oh, fuck, that's funny. That is some funny ass shit, bro. Anyway, man, these these. Oh, hey, did anybody get into the IFR shit in here? Is it any good? I haven't. I mean, I actually don't trust anything Microsoft Flight Sim for IFR stuff. But because the only way to do it is with autopilot, and that's not. You need to hand fly that shit sometimes. Is it? Does anybody? Nobody's really tried it. I'm wondering if it's cool or not. First of all, there's way more shit to do than all in here, but yeah, it's nice. VOR basics. I was wondering mostly if anybody had tried that. I want to do a VOR workshop sometime soon. Okay. So let's do it. Dude, whose airport are we gonna go do this pattern work at, by the way? Throw some airports at me. Calgors, thank you so much for the follow. Throw some airports at me. DSM? Okay, alright, DSM. Do we do pattern work in the jet, dude? Nah. But I am tempted to do it in the 152. Let's do it in the 152, actually. I don't think I've flown this one yet. And then what do we got? We got DSM. You know what? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do it at Fullerton. I'm going to do it at Fullerton first, and then we'll go to we'll go to another airport. Okay. And you know what? I think let's do our checklist right now, man. Let's do our checklist shit. All right. All right. Oh, is that right? We'll check that out. We'll check that out. So we're gonna chill on this. ENSD. You'll have to check that out. All right. I've been enjoying the 152 lately. Also installed the X-Plane 11 demo. Oh, dude, King Cobra, nice, dude. Yeah. Oh, dude, we got some people out here. You know what? Actually, I think what I'm gonna do is, dang, you know what? Yeah, there's some people out there. Yeah, it's fine. I was gonna say like, we'll just cut the rest of the traffic out, but I'm just gonna share my screen with you guys real quick. Power and attitude for performance for life, bro. That's all I can think about. Get that shit across your fucking belly, dude. I'm like, whoa, okay. And then you like go around the airport. Yo, bitch. You doing power and attitude for performance, right? You better be doing that. And they're like, I thought it was power for altitude and then pitch for airspeed. All right, we're gonna fuck him up now. Like total gangster, dude. Just like an actual gangster for some reason about this thing, dude. No, please, please. All right, cool, man. All right, nice. Yeah, the 152, man, it's really nice. I'm teaching in this 152 right now, and so and I got a couple students in my in this class or in this lecture right now, and so it'll be cool to have them, be able to see what's going on in their airplane. All right. So, let's get the chart off. Oh, you know what? And then the other thing that we need, I forgot in this is flight events. That's right. There we go. Okay, so you can see the airplane right there on the airport surface. And we will go ahead and start this thing up with our passenger briefing, right? So, passenger briefing is safety. So, S is for seats and seat belts and shoulder harnesses. Air vents are up there, and they're adjustable. And a fire extinguisher is going to be back there somewhere, or maybe down there. In an emergency, head of the tail away, open the door like that, head of the tail away from the propeller. And talking is okay. Help me look out for traffic, and there will be times of radio silence that I'm going to need. And then, do you have any more questions? All right, nice. We look at our written checklist, and the startup check is mixture full rich. And we're going to prime. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Primer is in and locked. And master on. And we want the radios off, actually. Where's our avionics? There should be an avionics switch. But, okay, make sure that avionics, that it's off first. Don't ever start with the airplane with it on. And then we are cleared left, center, right, and behind. Clear prop. Ooh, this thing did not want to start. Hold on. Yeah, I never know why this thing doesn't want to ever go. I think, what is it, Control E or Shift E? All right, Jesus Christ. Okay, so now anytime we start an engine, we go memory items first. First of all, power to 1,000, and then we go left to right. Right? We do fuel quantity. Oh, you know what? I bet that fuel flow was off. That's why. You know what? You're right. Negative. You know, I remember looking down and I actually saw that the fuel flow, I think that was off. That's right. Okay, carb heat. So oil temperature and pressure are green. Carb heat is off. Power set to 1,000. Right there. And lean for taxi. Flaps up. And electrical is good. Okay, cool. And then let's go ahead and get our ATIS. And ATIS is 12505. ATIS and ground go on number 2. Okay. 12505. And then ground is going to be 121.8. Cool. And then we're just going to switch over to right there. For some reason... Yeah, 12505, right? Does the radio... Is the radio weird in the 152? This is my first time using this airplane, actually, in the sim. Yeah, so normally we use COM 2 for the ATIS. So let's just say that we got the ATIS, and now we're going to switch to the ground for the taxi. We want to make sure that we are squawking 1200 and it's on altitude mode right there. And we call up Fullerton Ground. All right, and right now we're at the general aviation tie down. So Fullerton Ground, Cessna 48883, even though it says 510 Charlie Mike. 48883 at the GA tie downs, requesting taxi 24 run up with information Bravo. And they're going to say Cessna 48883 Fullerton Ground, taxi 24 run up via Alpha. Taxi 24 run up via Alpha, Cessna 48883. Cool. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to take that taxiway right there. We're going to pull out just like this and take that to the run up right there. Okay. And left, center, right, and behind. We're going to add a little bit of power just to get the airplane moving, and then we're going to back that power off. We know that over this ditch right here, we're going to go full aft, both ways on the taxiway. Remember that... oh, and there's the run-up actually right there. Look at this guy playing chicken with a goddamn airplane. Okay, we're out here in the run-up. Excellent. And toes down. We go through the mental checklist items for the run-up area, and that is cigars. CIGARS. C is for controls. And we do a box check like this. Oops, shit. We do a box check like this. Look at the controls. Full left, back, right, forward. Okay, we don't do this and this. That's not what we do. We do a full box check, okay? So when we go we go full forward and to the left, that right aileron is down, that aileron is up, back, elevator up, and to the right, good, down, and then rudder. Cool. All right, so flight controls are free and correct. I is for instruments. We're 0 right here, straight and level here. Altimeter set to the field elevation, which was actually right there. 0. Heading indicator is set to compass. Turn coordinator is showing correct. Let's put the frequencies in. The tower here is 119.1. Sweet. We're still on with the ground though. And 1200. Okay, CIG is for gas. So primer is in and locked. Mixture for best power. A is for trim for takeoff. And we are in the takeoff position. R is for run up. So we're going to bring that RPM right there up to 1700 RPM. Oh, you know what? I'm going to bring that sound up a little bit for you guys. There's a little bit of a lag in the... All right. So it's about 100 drop. Nice. And go to 1. RPM drop, nice. Looking at the vacuum is good. Oil temperature and pressure are good. Carb heat. The RPM drops down. Carb heat back out. And let's look at the electrical. Ooh. They have not modeled the electrical system in this airplane. Look at what the ammeter is doing, you guys. This is showing a full. This is showing it's a really bad situation actually. This is a full positive. You notice the needle is not in the middle. Look at that. Full positive deflection means that the voltage regulator is in op and this battery is being overcharged. So that should be in the middle. And we would actually load the electrical to make sure it maintains neutrality by, this should be on actually, turning on the pitot heater and the flaps. And, you know, but, you know, there you go. So, there's Microsoft Flight Sim for you. And then power idle with the carb heat. All right. And then back to 1,000, lean. You want to make sure to don't forget to lean for taxi after that run up is done. Don't leave that mixture in because there's too much fuel that's going in. You're going to have some of that unburned carbon depositing on the spark plugs. Okay, so now that our run up is complete, oh, you said A is for trim for takeoff. I mean, that's so odd. I'd probably, so odd you would remember it. A is for attitude. And the attitude that you want to achieve on takeoff, it comes from trim. So one of the other checklists that we do after the cigars is done, CIGARS, by the way, S is for seatbelts. Once the cigars is done, we are pre-takeoff, and that starts with the pilot briefing. The pilot briefing, we break up into two pieces. We do the departure brief and then the emergency briefing. And the departure briefing, we use the airport diagram. We should have an airport diagram with us whenever we're taxiing. And there you go. And the airport diagram is right there. And so we're going to... Goes like this. The runway that we're going to be using runway 24 at intersection alpha. You can see right there, intersection alpha. It's 3,100 feet of available runway. We're going to be departing. Our liftoff speed is going to be 55 knots. We're pitching for VY is 67. And then an en route climb of 70, but honestly, like we're not climbing on a departure. We're going to be climbing to be in the pattern here, and this is going to be right close traffic today, up to 1,100 feet. It's 1,000 feet above the ground right here at sea level, is almost 100 feet, and we'll be right close pattern. In an emergency, we will, if we haven't, well, first of all, we're anticipating an engine failing every takeoff. So if the engine fails before we leave the ground, we're going to pull the power to idle, brake, and taxi off. If the engine quits on us, but after we leave the ground and there's enough available runway to land the airplane on the runway, we're going to pull the power to idle, establish best glide speed of 60, and put the airplane back down on the remaining runway. If there's not enough available runway, we will pull the power to idle, establish best glide speed, and put it on this main street right here is Commonwealth. And then at a minimum of 800 feet, we're going to turn the airplane around. Okay, so the takeoff briefing is complete. Pre-takeoff checklist. I like to do the pre-takeoff check in the run-up, so that way we're not holding short of the runway over there, and there might be somebody behind us, and we're really tempted to rush through that checklist. And it just takes a second, but you know. So it's lights, nav, and landing light, carb heat, power mix, flaps, and we're good to go. All right, so Fullerton ground, Cessna 48883, run up complete, taxi to runway 24. Cessna 48883, continue taxi runway 24 via Alpha. Taxi 24 via Alpha, Cessna 48883. All right, toes off. Add a little bit of power to get moving, and then rudder to get on that solid yellow line. And we don't need to hold that power in, so I'm power idle right now with a little bit of back pressure over the ditch here. Yeah, that sucks that they didn't model the 152 systems like, you know, super good. Because radio 2 isn't working, as well as the RPM is also kind of laggy, and the electrical is not working. I wonder what happens actually. Hold on, let me turn off the master. See, so it should be full negative right now with the alternator off. Yeah, see, that's whack, dude. That's not the way it's supposed to. Okay, and then we're just going to gently apply the brakes as we're coming up to the hold short lines. Awesome. And there's a familiar sight to some of you that have been working with me. So there's runway 24 at Alpha. Those are the hold short lines. We know that these are train tracks. Sometimes there's a really cute little white kitty that's in here that's like hunting for like mice, I guess, or some shit, but he's so cute. And this guy's got a this guy in a hangar over here has got a really nice archer that he's got a nice hangar too. Okay, so we're ready for takeoff. So we go mixture full rich, lights are on, camera. The transponder is set on altitude mode and action. Mixture, right? Lights, camera, action. And then we switch over to COM 1. Fullerton Tower, Cessna 48883, holding short runway 24 at Alpha. Right close traffic. Right close traffic approved. Clear for takeoff, runway 24, 48883. Before we cross the hold short lines, we verbalize, we clear final out there. Yep, lights, camera, action. Shoot a glance out there. Get out here onto the center line. All right, and this is what I was saying. We line it up here. 2-4 on the compass, 2-4 on the heading indicator. Toes down, 2,000 RPM. We look at engine temperature, pressure, vacuum, electricals good. Let's go. Heels on the ground. Full power, and I am picking up speed. You'll notice that I'm like kind of jabbing those rudders to make the rudder pedals to make sure that I'm tracking centered. Airspeed's alive. Systems are green on the roll, and lifting off, maintaining the that 67 knots, that VY climb. Again, this is not handling at all the way that it's supposed to in real life. This is supposed to be way more stable. Joey, what's up, dude? Good to see you, man. There's that, there's beach. We're going to turn. Notice the medium, you know, the shallow to medium bank here in the in the crosswind turn. Okay, and there's our, we're keeping an eye on the runway over there. Squaring our crosswind, we're continuing to climb, turning downwind. And here we are almost at TPA, so I'm gonna back that power off a little bit. Lower that nose. Keeping an eye on that runway. The shit is like fucked. Alright, and then I just wanted to point something out to you guys. Oh my god, this shit is so fucking frustrating. Okay. First of all, actually I want to square up a little bit more. Nice. Okay, so we're over here, 80 knots, 1,100 feet. We're looking around 2,100 RPM. Actually, we're a little high, a little like 22. But I did want to show you guys the sight picture. You know, here we are on downwind. And let's see here, checking the ammeter now. It's technically working, but might be configured wrong, or the alternator is overpowered. The needle is calibrated for minus 60 to plus 60. With the engine running and alternator on, it's charging at 53 amps, holding it's on charging at 53 amps, holding starter drops it to draining by 160. Listen, all I know is you want this to be, you do not want that to be that positive. You don't want that to be you don't want that to be so far. Look at that shit, man. That is not the way it's supposed to be. You want a you want some neutrality. You want that needle to be pretty much in the middle, and of a zero, of a net zero. And what it's saying is that there's balance with the electricity that's being drawn and the electricity that's being replenished. Yeah, it should be near neutral. It shouldn't be... that shit is crazy looking. I mean, if you have some... The reality is this is an analog instrument. You know what I mean? So we got a needle that kind of trips out sometimes. It's like somewhat neutral, but it might tick or whatever, like on that side or something. Like, that's fine, but this shit is out of the park on the side, dude. Like, that shit is crazy positive, dude. Granted, it's not a full-scale deflection, but Jesus Christ, like, you know, that thing needs to chill out. Joey, you're saying I'm terrible with patterns. I need to practice my local airports more. Oh, yeah, dude, that's why we're here, man. We're here, like, trying to get at the fundamentals, man. So welcome. Now, this is really nice. First of all, notice the slow cruise pitch attitude side picture we were talking about. This is like kind of cruise, slow cruise. You got this gap right here between the top of the nose and the horizon. You got a gap right here. If that gap is huge, the telltale sign is that you're descending. You're about to be 1,000 feet or even lower, right? And you're probably picking up speed too. Wingtip sight pictures look good. You have symmetry, right? You're not banking because the distance from the horizon to this wingtip is the same as the distance of this horizon to that wingtip. See, so it looks good out of the front, and it also looks good out of the sides too. You know what I mean? Now, additional sight picture wise, we are keeping an eye, not a pilot, but from an electrical perspective. Yeah, like you see what I'm saying, Wambi, like that. Yeah, like that right there. That positive on the ammeter is showing that the voltage regulator is not working. Right, there's an over voltage condition going on, and that is an overheating battery, potentially an electrical fire like imminent. That is a fucked up indication right there. The other sight picture I wanted to say is that there's that remember I was saying on the far side patterns like on the right traffic patterns, it's not going to be through the smack middle of the strut. It might be a little bit lower on the strut, right? Middle to lower strut. Like this is actually okay. This distance right here. You probably don't want to be much closer than that, but this is fine. This is fine. Okay. And what we're going to do is continue down this downwind leg right here. And right, so we took off and we flew crosswind, square crosswind, and now we're on base or on downwind. We're going to continue to fly this downwind leg. And when this wingtip is abeam the touchdown spot right here, then we're going to configure for a CAPVA landing. We're going to use, I don't know, 1600 RPM probably. Okay, so just keeping an eye on the touchdown spot. Just always keep checking. See that? Checking for traffic out here. I don't see any traffic. Okay, almost. Boom, right there. Okay, sight picture out the front looks good. Wingtips, sight picture symmetry. But here, look at this. The wing is off of the aiming point is right there. That's the touchdown spot. Our touchdown aiming point is like where the touchdown's right here, right? So right when we're abeam the touchdown spot and we're clear to land, right? This would be Cessna 48883. You're clear to land runway 24. Clear to land runway 24, 48883, and we're gonna make this a touch and go actually, right? Okay, fine. There, clear for the option runway 24, 48883. So first thing I'm gonna do is pull carb heat, reduce power to 16, flaps 1, and chase 80 knots all the way down. All right, but first thing is you want to make sure that you're not over speeding. That you don't want to put flaps in there when this airspeed indicator is outside of the white arc. The white arc is right here, so we're just right at the top of the white arc, and we're good. So let's do that. Let's back that power off. Let's go carb heat, power reduce to 17, and flaps 1. Now, I wanted to show you what's going on here. So, we started our descent. Okay, cool. We're just keeping an eye on the runway there. So we are pitching down. Look at the sight picture, by the way. Since we put the carb heat on, we reduced power and added flaps 1. Right, we're out here at 1700 RPM. We are in a descent because we know this because we reduced power and that gap opened up. The gap between the nose and the horizon increased. But we don't want it to be super gnarly gap because then, we're descending way too quickly. And now our speed is increasing and it's all crazy, right? So we just want to maintain this 80 knots. We're descending to chase 80 knots. And then at 1,000 feet, we're going to keep checking like that, right? We're checking the runway back there behind us. That's the runway right there. At 1,000 feet, we'll make our turn. There's 1,000 feet coming up. And remember the bank angle that we're trying to make is a medium bank angle. Flaps 2. Personally, I don't care if a student puts flaps in the turn. It doesn't matter. People want to make a big deal out of stuff. All right. We're square, and we're a little bit high above our target, but I did want to point something out. So we should be 70 knots in 70. We're not doing super terrible. I mean, it's nice to be, we're like a little bit high, but couple things on base. First of all, we're flaps 2. I'm going to leave flaps 2 in there the whole time. Carb heat remains on and the power setting is where we left it. Sometimes that likes to creep down if you're not careful. On base, okay, you're looking for the descending sight picture, the descending pitch attitude sight picture. This gap is the same. Remember, this is CAPVA. Constant airspeed and power or I'm sorry, constant attitude and power, variable airspeed. So we have not touched the power. This is constant power. The attitude is also not changed. This is still the same descending sight picture that we saw out there as well. Then we do the height assessment on base, right? We can see the runway right here. Looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit low actually for how far we are. Even though we're above our target right here, we're kind of far out a little bit, but I think we're probably fine actually. The next target is 65 in the corner right here. We would just want to keep an eye on the runway. I'm actually probably going to reduce power a little bit now that I think of it. We want to be 500 to 600 feet above the ground when we turn base to final. The last thing I'll say is this. On base, everybody wants to be doing this, right? Boom, 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 boom. Always looking at where's the runway? Like, oh, am we too high? I'm not. Nobody, no, you know, some people early on, they have a hard time doing this. We need to be looking out there, not just here. We need to be looking out here too, because we need to make sure that we clear final and that there's traffic. We're aware of any traffic that might be on a straight in that, you know, that we might have missed. Okay, so we get on base, you shoot a glance at the runway, fine. We'll come back to that. Out here, and we vocalize clear final, and then we're back out here. By the way, it doesn't hurt to look at your flaps and make sure that they're down, okay? All right, cool. So we're getting ready to go. Now, we're going to turn base to final, and then now we are in landing mode. And I want to break down this landing when we're on final. Pretty close to the runway. So you can see here, this is a descending. We're 65 knots in the turn, 500 to 600 feet base to final. This is a shallow to medium bank. All right, this is about a 20-degree bank. You can also tell right here it's 20 degrees, but I want to stay away from showing you guys, you know, using the. Oh, you know what? My face is like all up in the way. We'll do another lap in the pattern where, you know, if in case my face was in the way of the airspeed. So we're coming around to the runway, and I wanted to remind you of what the control inputs are. We need rudder for to maintain the alignment with the extended center line of the runway. There's the extended center line of the runway. We want rudder to maintain alignment, and we want aileron into the wind. Now, we don't have any wind right now, but that is how we would use the control inputs, okay? So I'm going to get on final, and I'm going to use my feet to maintain alignment, and then I'm going to use aileron to maintain a ground track. Now, I'm actually kind of high right now, so I'm going to reduce power a little bit. And I want you guys to pay attention. I'm going to get on final and see if we have enough time to look at the runway shape here. Okay, let me see if I can. Cool. So we're a little fast, but that's fine. I wanted to show you guys runway shape, what I was talking about here. They don't even have a VASI or the PAPI yet. That's so weird. There's a PAPI at Fullerton. They don't even have that in Microsoft. This is the trapezoidal shape that I was talking about. In fact, it's a little bit long, if you ask me. Talking about landing techniques, you know, we'll actually, we do need a lecture in it of itself, like on its own, about landing. But one of the things that we talk about is runway shape. There's that trapezoid that we're looking for. If we were high, it would look a lot longer. If we were low, it would look more squashed. The other thing that I wanted to point out is as we do this descent, I want you guys to try and pick out where the point of no apparent relative motion is, because that's where the airplane's headed, and that point should be right around there right now. Okay, we're 65 on final. Now, one of the things to landing is getting into ground effect. Let's actually get a little bit lower here. So you can see here, we're 60 knots on short final. We're headed right for this area right here. And what's going to happen is we still have some power in there, right? So as we get into ground effect is 10 to 15 feet above the ground. We got to watch out for these are trains right here. So we got to, you know. But as we get into ground effect, I'm going to go power idle, establish a level pitch attitude. I'm going to focus down the runway. And then as the airplane starts to sink and as I see those sidelines moving up at me, I'm going to apply back pressure to reduce the sink rate, right? So here we go. Let's get into ground effect. Speed looks good. Here comes ground effect. Power idle. Level pitch attitude down the runway. Sinking. There's the sinking right there. Sidelines coming up. Back pressure. And they cleared us for the options. So we're going to go carb heat, power, flaps 10. Right rudder. And remember, on the climb, we need right rudder. Pitching for VY. There's that VY climb pitch attitude sight picture. And we are 300 feet, safe altitude, positive rate of climb, safe speed, flaps up. And we're just going to maintain VY. There's that VY sight picture. We know that this is VY because we've got the remember we're using this part in the takeoff technique. We were talking about this area here. Oh shit. Hold on. Fuck. We were talking about this triangular area right here, and that VY, you know, we're just basically bouncing our eyes back and forth like this. There's that 67 knots right there, and that the horizon is right there. So too high and you lose the horizon, right? Too low and the horizon starts creeping up and up and up on the instrument panel, and you don't want that. So there's 300 feet and there's beach. Let's go ahead and make our shallow to medium bank turn, making sure to not lose too much speed or gain too much speed. And squaring our crosswind, there's the runway right there. And boom, let's turn downwind. We're 900 feet in that turn. So I'm going to reduce power. Slow it all down, man. Remember, no round crosswinds. Look at this, though. We're pretty close to the runway, man. We're pretty close to the runway. How do you know? I'm going to show you. First of all, back that power off. Look at that. That's pretty low on the strut, man. That's pretty low. So what I'm going to do, see that? I mean, it's significantly lower than where it was. Last time it was like right here. So what I want to do is fly a heading, you were asking me, I think it was you, negative, or was it somebody else had a great question. How do you know, what the control inputs are? I'm not thinking in terms of control inputs. I'm thinking in terms of headings. I need to fly a heading, and I'm not talking about a heading right here. I mean, it helps, but basically, I'm using outside references, man. I need to fly out here more. I need to diverge. I need to diverge from this runway. So I'm going to fly some heading in there and just keep an eye on that runway moving up the strut. Let's watch it. And I'm not being shy about the bank either. See that? We've already moved it up the strut. See that? It's up the strut now. There you go. Now I'm going to start creeping back over. There you go. See, we moved it up the strut more. Very nice. And now we're abeam the touchdown spot. So I'm going to go carb heat. This thing is being super weird, of course, like Microsoft Flight Sim does. 1700 RPM, flaps 1, and pitching for 80, keeping an eye on the runway. There it is. We're low. Let's go ahead and turn. There's our 1000 flaps 2 on base. Height assessment. We're actually pretty close. We're actually pretty close and pretty high. Right, look at this issue right here. We're 700 feet, right? But dude, we're 75 knots. We should be 70 and 700. In fact, right now we're base to final. So we should be 200 feet lower and 65 knots. So this is a great opportunity to use full flaps. Remember, power and attitude for performance together. So I'm probably going to go power idle and flaps and full flaps. Yeah, we're totally high. Power idle, flaps 30. And now look at this descent rate. Where's that dot? That dot is right there now. See that? That's the part, that's the point that doesn't move. Wow, look at all that drag. We really sank. I'm going to increase power a little bit to kind of correct. We're really slow. This is why I'm not a huge fan of full flaps. Going into ground effect, power idle. Flaps 10. Right rudder going down the runway. And remember, we're going to reduce that. There's that VY. Good. And then we're out of here at VY. Notice I do have the flaps in still. I have flaps, not all of them, but I have flaps 10 in there just to get off the ground. The problem is if you on a short runway like this, especially, I do it regardless, but short runway like this, you know, if you don't have flaps in there to help get you off the runway, it's, you know, it can get kind of, you can get close to that fence, you know what I'm saying? 300 feet, positive rate of climb, save speed, flaps up. And let's maintain VY. And I'm going to go to the chat real quick. You said, negative said, back during my PPL training, my CFI said pattern work is just a ground reference maneuver. It's absolutely true. It's a rectangular pattern, is the actual name of the ground reference maneuver. Suddenly it all clicked for some reason. Also, eyes to the end of the runway help my landings. Yeah, you want to, let's take a look at that on that next circuit. You want eyes at the end of the runway. Let's make that crosswind turn. You want eyes at the end of the runway throughout the level off, but not the flare. Yeah, because as you flare and you There's your square crosswind, and I'm going to stay on crosswind for a second here. Kind of learned my lesson from last time. As you flare, yeah, you're going to need to transition from looking out here to down back in here again. Yeah, there's like a major lag, dude, in the power settings here. That's cool though, man. Yeah, your CFI is right on, by the way. All right, so I'm just keeping an eye on the runway. It's a pretty good distance up the strut. Coming up on the touchdown point pretty soon. There's that slow cruise pitch attitude sight picture. And there it is. So let's go carb heat on. Power reduce. We're in the wide arc. Flaps 1. Chasing 80. Nice wide open gap there for 80 knots. And we're just making sure that we keep an eye out. There's 1,000. It's actually, let's keep it going to 900. Like 950, 900. There's that medium bank turn, flaps 2. $75 knots in the turn. And we need to be 70 and 700 on square base. Nice. Nice numbers, man. These numbers look good, dude. Right? Constant power, 700. We got just above 70. We take a look out here. We're clear final. We do our height assessment of the runway. Runway looks good. Let's do it. 5 to 600 feet. Here comes our base to final turn. We should be 65 in the turn. Notice how I kind of turned a little early, so I'm going to shallow it out. I'm not going to keep that bank in there. I'm also fast, so I'm going to reduce power. Again, the plane not behaving as it would in real life. And now I'm just looking for runway shape. I got rudder to align my airplane down the extended center line. 65 over the fence, 60 now over the fence rather. Into ground effect power idle and leveling off right here. Down the right, eyes down the runway, and then flaring to transition. You see, right there. We're not on the ground quite yet. See that? So we're right in the middle of the flare. We're right in the middle of the flare. We're transitioning from straight and level flight to, or well, not straight and level, but I mean, we're transitioning from level flight, you know, with a level pitch attitude to the flare. So the problem is if we were looking down the runway, right? In a level pitch attitude, we were looking down the runway, but right now we're transitioning. We need to move our eyes from right here, like you're saying, negative, to down in here. We need to shift our view, because as we raise the nose, we might actually lose the end of the runway if we're flaring pretty high. And it's possible to flare properly and still lose the end of the runway, and not be like, whoa, you shouldn't be flaring that high because then you're going to strike your tail. No, that's absolutely not. It's possible that you could overdo it, but you know, it's not. It's just, especially if you're not that tall, you're probably going to lose at least most of this runway. So either way, you know, you want to shift your eyes into this whole area right here. And when you shift your eyes into this area, realizing that back pressure, you know, this is what I'm saying, that these sidelines right here on both sides, by the way, because normally in normal peripheral vision, you'll see this too, actually. But these sidelines right here are going to come up at you. And so back pressure, smooth and continuous back pressure actually reduces the rate that these sidelines come up at you, right? It reduces that sink rate. So here we are outside. See, we're already starting to pitch up. These mains, I'm going to try and see if I can actually unpause this. Yeah, I'm just going to stay in the airplane. I'm going to unpause and then continue the flare. There you go. And then rudder to maintain the center line. Now, I'm going to taxi off here to parking. What is this, Foxtrot? And look both ways before getting onto the taxiway. All right. That is not taxiway Alpha. This is like Foxtrot right here. Or maybe Delta. So we get off the runway and then we clean it up. Okay, we go carb heat off. Mixture lean for taxi, flaps up, check systems, retrim for takeoff, and Fullerton Tower, Cessna 48883, clear runway 24 at Foxtrot, taxi back, actually taxi to parking to 48883. And Cessna 48883, taxi to parking via Alpha. Taxi to parking via Alpha 48883. And what we're going to do is take our airport diagram out. We make a habit out of that. Take our airport diagram out. Anytime we go to taxi. Oh, it's Echo. My bad. And there we go. All right. And so then now we're good to taxi. Notice, by the way, the sight picture, the taxiing sight picture, I keep that taxi line right on that part of the nose. Anytime you go to deviate, I'm going to continue on the taxiway. See how the taxiway deviates over here? Just going to bring that right back over to that spot again. Bam, right there. See that? And you're going to go deviate that way. Okay, the taxi line starts moving. See? So that is, we use sight picture even for taxiing. Just as a heads up. Okay. Dude, that was fun, you guys. I do need to go to sleep and get some rest. Like I said, I'm recovering from being sick, but I'm just too ill. No, but I am. But it was fun, dude. It's always super fun to hang out with you guys, and thank you so much for your participation and for your insights. For those of you that haven't already, I would appreciate the follow. And you see here, like, what I do, I put all these materials together myself. And it takes a lot of time, and a lot of effort. And this comes at a great expense to myself, to have learned these things to just kind of give you guys. So if you could, I would be so grateful if you could show some support, help keep the channel going with some subs. And maybe, refer your friends to the page, to the channel, and donations are welcome. And yeah, I really, really appreciate it. It was really awesome. I met some of you for the first time tonight. And yeah, dude, great to see you too, man. Have a good night. I'll see you soon. And the cool thing is you can come back to Twitch and rewatch these videos. You can take notes on things. And that's how you do it. I purposefully went through the different checklists, radio ops, sight pictures, power settings, targets, airspeed, altitude, targets, sight pictures in turns, descents, climbs, and stuff like that. Also went through the startup checklist, the cigars checklist, as well as the pre-takeoff check, or I'm sorry, the pre-takeoff briefing that we talked about with the departure and the emergency, as well as the lights, camera, action. Really want you to pay attention as you roll onto the center line. Those few things that I did as well that kind of need to go really quickly, but you do want to line up, check your compass to your heading indicator, and then toes down, power 2000 RPM, check your systems, temperature and pressure are green, and full power, toes off, full power, let's go, right rudder down to maintain the center line of the runway, and then lift off, right, and then so on and so on. So Black Cobra, happy new year to you as well. Thank you so much. And you guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Actually, you know, I think I will be back. No, I should probably go to bed. I was tempted to play some video games tonight, actually, some Witcher, but you know, I think I should probably lay down and relax. But I'll probably be back tomorrow. And I'm still, you know, still recovering, feeling better, but yeah. And you guys are awesome, man. So I'll see you guys tomorrow afternoon probably. And good night, dude.